It's okay.
So you got yours?
Mhm.
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay. Welcome to the Providence City Council. Tonight's Wednesday, February 21st. We're glad that we've got this many people in the building today because our weather has not been very good. I'm Kathleen Alder. I'm the mayor, and we have Brent Speth, Janelle Seeley, Carrie Kirk, and David Coons. And we're missing, is Jeff not able to be here?
Haven't heard from them.
Okay.
But I would check, Tyler, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thanks.
Coming down the hall.
Oh, there's Jeff. And we have Tyler Cameron on Zoom with us tonight because he lives over in Brigham City and the Canyon might be a little dicey going home tonight, so we told him he could do it. We have, now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and I will lead that. So if you'll all please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. David Coons will now give us a short prayer, unless we have someone in the audience that would like to do that. Okay.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity tonight to meet as council and citizens of Providence, and we pray that we'll be able to make wise decisions and do the right thing for the city to preserve our freedoms and do the best that we can. We're grateful for our many blessings to live in such a beautiful place and have the many opportunities to serve and grow together that we do. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We will go ahead now with the council reports. Before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that there are primaries going to be held this year. The primaries are called something different. If you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, they will send the information to your home. If you're a Republican, you will need to go to your caucus meeting to vote in the primary. So please make sure, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. The people who are here to talk about things on our agenda are the people who are involved politically. So please be sure that you vote. Don't give that away. Okay, let's do the council reports. We have anybody that wants to go first? Okay, Carrie?
So as I was thinking about my council report, I just wanted to express gratitude to the staff. We have some new code that's on the agenda, and I'm so grateful for the work that they do to make our jobs easier, like the time they spend on every single word so that we can get things right and that our city will run smoothly. So just a big shout out to the staff. As far as the youth council, last week they went to the day at the legislature. I wasn't there, but David and Mayor Alder were there, and Mayor Alder set up the details, and they were grateful to be able to do that. On March 14th through 16th, I'm taking 8 high schoolers to the Utah State Leadership Conference. It's such a great opportunity for the youth in our community. And then weather permitting, on March 30th, we'll be hosting the Easter egg hunt. It will be in the newsletter and on social media outlets. We're asking people to sign up for an Easter egg hunt time. We'll do one at 11 and one at 12.
If any of you remember last year, we had a foot of snow for our Easter egg hunt. We thought, nah, maybe we better not have that this year. So that's why she said weather permitting, plus it's the end of March, so it's kind of an early time for us. Okay, who's next? I'll go for it.
Some of the things that I've been doing for council, I've been working with Courtney Flint up with Utah State with their USU Wellbeing Survey. They've been drafting that, and I think it should be going out pretty soon, but basically we're looking for feedback from all residents, from every demographic, male, female, 18 to 118. We like it from teenagers too, but you don't vote, so they won't collect your data yet, soon enough. And so, basically what I'm saying is we don't want just one response per household. We want like a different perspective for each, demographic within the city. And we're hoping to get some information from that survey, to help us with our Healthy Cities Coalition and just to be setting goals and making, trajectory and things that are important to our citizens to make the quality of life here in Providence as good as it can be. So another thing that I've been working on is I help with LPC, which is the Legislative Policy Committee with the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I just wanted to say how much I appreciated Ryan and Mayor Alder working so closely with Representative Snyder and Representative Peterson on House Bill 367 to address some of the needs that we have for our city. And I think it's been a positive experience interacting with those legislatures, and it's nice when they're responsive to your concerns. Just something that I wanted to share with the rest of the council. We have about 10 days left in the legislative session, and the league is asking for extra eyes and feedback on 3 specific bills that are financing tools for the housing industry. It's Senate Bill 208, House Bill 572, and Senate Bill 268. So to just take a look at those and see if there's any concerns, anything that we want them to focus on in particular on behalf of the city as they're lobbying for the interest of the cities. So those are finance tools. So Brian and I went down to Lehigh to a broadband networking meeting with a bunch of different municipalities that have broadband projects of varying scope in their communities, and I feel like that was a positive thing. We learned a lot about how they're handling their projects and challenges that they're facing, and we just kind of shared information, ideas back and forth on that topic. And I thought that was productive. I also attended the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity Broadband Alliance meeting this morning. And it's just so obvious to me that we're so fortunate to have the infrastructure and the network that we have, because there are entities striving to get this connectivity, to have these opportunities for access to information nationwide, all over the state, all over the country. And it just becomes more and more apparent to me what an asset this is for our community. I was also able to attend the Blacksmith Fork Irrigation Annual Meeting on, it was the 12th, on the 12th of February, and the whole room was packed, so it was great. So it's nice to have people here tonight as well. I'm looking forward to being able to stream to the TVs in the not too far, maybe distant future. It'll be great. I help them run their presentation of all their projects and their budget and things, and sometimes becomes court spaghetti. So, and I spent time with the government students at Ridgeline. They had an elected officials panel last week, and so I got to go and answer all of their questions. And there's a wide variety of questions from high schoolers, so that's always fun. And that's what I've been doing.
Great, thank you. Who's next?
Bingo. So, first off, I wanna thank Rob and his crew for the conditions of the roads this morning. As we bus drivers were over talking at 6 o'clock this morning and looking at the snow and the slide offs and problems people were having. And one bus driver who drives here in Providence, he said, I'm just dreading going on those hills. So when he got back in at 9, I said, so how was your run? He said, those guys did a fantastic job. Please tell them thank you. So Rob, I want to tell you guys personally, thank you for taking care of the roads the way you do. Yeah, you did an excellent job. I also have to say that nobody did a good job, because that's where I drive, but you guys did a fantastic job. I just want to bring up a couple of things while we're talking a little bit about school. There's a House bill going through right now. It's in its second reading today in the Senate committee. It's House Bill 345. If it passes, the fee, if you're caught running red lights on a school bus, first offense is $1,000 and 20 hours community service. The second offense is $2,000 and 20 days community service. A third offense in a 5-year period is $3,000 and 40 days of 40 hours of community service. The state is not putting up with people running reds. And so if you see a school bus that's got its orange lights on, you better be finding your brake pedal and slowing yourself down, because it's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you dearly too. And not only that, as soon as they can, they're equipping school buses with cameras on the exterior. So we photograph people who run reds. And so don't run reds. I'll just say that much. So a couple of things to bring to you in concerning emergency. Well, one more on transportation. There is a group that's called Utah Transit Riders Union. And what they do is the Utah Transit Riders Union is a nonprofit organization that advocates for the present and future transit rider needs, and to see that it's reliable, takes care of the things you need, gets you where you're going. And so on May 20th, they're inviting people who have signed up to take rides for a 7-day challenge on the buses, your transit that you have in your community. And this is statewide, so they can get an idea of how effective, how efficient, how good, and what they need to do to improve public transportation. So that's coming up. Anybody'd like to participate there, we can get you registered. The next thing is CERT training. The CERT training, there's 3 CERT training courses going on right now in various cities. Smithfield has already started. North Logan will start March 5th and go through April 13th, Tuesdays and Thursdays nights. Hiram will start March 13th and go May 8th through March 13th through May 8th on Tuesday nights. And so if anybody's interested in getting involved in CERT training, contacting these cities can get you signed up and get this CERT training. Also,
Brent, why don't you define what CERT training is quickly?
Okay, CERT training is, it's not the thing, it's Citizens Emergency Response Team. So what they do is train you in the event of a disaster of various roles that you can fill as citizen groups. And they train you as to how to, if there was an earthquake, how you would go together as teams and look into conditions of homes. In other words, there's not enough people to take care of all these problems. Some homes will be deemed not habitable. CERT trained people can go ahead and help people know whether their homes are going to be able to live in. It also helps with flood. It helps when Logan City had the slide over on Canyon Road. the CERT teams, log people in, log people out, help, take care of, food and organization of teams so that, it was an organized thing. Emergency people were there, but the CERT team worked to help keep it organized and keep it moving and not have chaos. So there's all various types of things that these citizens emergency response teams can do.
Thank you.
It's good training, yeah.
Excuse me, what were the dates for Providence again?
Well, we don't have one ourselves, but you can go to North Logan, and that's March 5th through March 12th. And they're Tuesday and Thursday nights. Then Hiram will be doing CERT training March 13th through May 8th on Tuesday nights. And it's free. You can go to these communities and the training is free. And you can get certified as a CERT person.
So can they call the city to find out where it is? Do you know where it is?
They'd have to talk to the cities themselves, like North Logan.
So call
and,
North Logan or
and
Hiram.
Hiram, yeah,
They'll tell you what building to go to.
yeah. And who, yeah, they can help you out with that, okay? Just want to let you know that there's also a ham radio licensing testing day. And that's February the 24th, and that's at the Sheriff's Complex on the 2nd floor. And that's a Saturday, so anybody who needs to license or relicense and ham radio operator, you can do that on February the 24th. And let's see, I believe that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Jeff?
It was nice to attend some Cache County School District meetings. I went to 2 of them since we met last
Good
time,
job.
and it's nice. It relates more to my daytime job, and if it doesn't relate to the city, it relates to my job, so it's kind of nice. It was interesting to watch the school board, just observe how they went through the process of increasing their pay. I'm sure they deserve their increase, but I don't know, it's just it was similar to what we do and how you vote for your own increase, and it was just interesting to watch them jump from their $350 a month to $750 a month, just like that. So I'm sure they're worth it too. I think they put in a lot of time, but it was just fun to watch that process of voting to increase your own pay. Anyway, they brought up a bunch of different bills, House bills, Senate bills that apply to education, maybe not so much to the city, but mostly to education employees. And anyway,
Anything that applies to us in Providence that we need to know about?
there was a safety bill. They were more concerned about the education side of that, so. No.
Okay.
And then, just responding to citizen emails, someone was concerned about I forgot what it was, so from the newsletter, something about the $1,000 gift cards and where that money is coming from. And I don't know, I guess they're just donated $1,000 gift cards from local businesses if you sign up.
It's $1,000, not multiple. So the $1,000 is the total, and it's individual gift cards of smaller amounts, to make up several, I think.
So it's not $1,000.
It's not a $1,000 gift card multiple times. It's $1,000. It's kind of a marketing, expense. So,
And that
Strata
money,
donated that.
that money comes from it's donated from the local
It's donated
businesses
to Strata,
or?
or Strata
From Strata,
donated it as a marketing for their
Okay.
side, so it didn't come out of but we do pay for marketing out of fiber as we have some marketing needs, so.
I think that's all.
Great, thank you. David?
So not a lot to report yet, but, and I probably don't need to report on this maybe going forward, but continuing to meet Ryan bi-weekly and get things up to speed, so I know what I'm doing here. And they say the learning curve is about a year, and so I'm gonna at least commit to that with Ryan and,
Trying to straighten the curve.
yeah, maybe speed it up a little bit, double down, but, so we'll still do that. Carrie mentioned it briefly, but it was a great opportunity to go to the Capitol, with Mayor Alder and the Youth Council. I really enjoyed that and was able to bring my boys with me. They loved it and want to get involved somehow, I think, too, so that's really neat. We were able to meet Representatives Snyder and Johnson, Senator Wilson, so they were really gracious to spend time with us and talk a little bit about what they're working on and take pictures with us and all the fun stuff there. And it was neat to see the Capitol building itself, the architecture and artwork and just things on display that they have. You can really learn a lot of Utah history just by showing up, and anyone, you can just go walk in and walk around, and there's free taffy on all their tables, so like kids like the taffy.
They were chasing us down, trying to give us taffy.
Yeah, I like the taffy, so, yeah, that's about, oh, and we were able to see the representatives and senators actually working on passing bills and voting, and it was interesting to see them. Some were meeting with people out in the hall, and there was a chime, and they'd come back in the room and raise their hand to vote. They have to have both feet in the doorway, I guess, so I'll be right back, I gotta go vote on this, and it was just came right back, and that was really interesting just to watch the process and get familiar with that. I guess I've stolen mosquito abatement from Jeff, so I've got a meeting tomorrow night with the Cache Mosquito Abatement District. I probably will maybe have something to report on that for next time, so.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. I have a bunch of things to report, but I'll go quickly. I was able to testify before the legislative committee about land conservation. It's $5 million in the governor's budget, but it's only one-time money. So each year we have to go back for more, and Cache Valley really has a lot of land that we've been conserving so that it stays in farmland. But that was an interesting process to go testify there. I attend the LPC meetings to talk about issues that the Utah League has identified that are important for us to be looking at, so that, and talking with our representatives and senators. And so I've been involved in lobbying before in my other jobs, so it's kind of good to be up on the hill and see what's going on. And we actually have an effect when we go in and talk to the senators and representatives and let them know how we feel about things and what impact it has on us, because so many bills that they pass have unintended consequences that they're not aware of, and it's up to us to let them know. I am now the chair of the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization. And with that, I picked up 2 other meetings with UDOT. So I'll be attending those, and roads are a big deal. We have a lot of roads. We have 35 miles of road?
Just over 40 miles of road.
Just over 40 miles of road that have to be plowed, that have to be maintained, that have to be cleaned in our city. And so when you talk to the plow drivers and you think they just have 1 or 2 to plow, they don't. They have 40 miles of road to get plowed in order for you to get where you're going. The elementary school is working on a contest from the Utah League of Cities and Towns of why I love my community. And so I asked them to share those with us. There'll be essays from their 4th to 7th grade. So it'll be interesting to see why the children in our community love to live here. We are trying to get letters of support for our trail that is going to come down from
Edge Hill Drive.
is Edge Hill Drive down onto First East, and that will give people a place to walk instead of going on the road and possibly getting run over. So those letters of support are going to be important. This last month, Janelle and I met with the school board and the school board and the superintendent, and we were able to talk about things that we have in common, things that need to be taken care of. And we suggested to him that we have a liaison that, from our council, that goes to the Board of Education meetings. And we would like to have someone from the board be a liaison to us. And so that person has been identified. They thought it was a great idea. And who is it?
Brittany Foster.
Brittany Foster then is going to be our representative, which means that at some point she'll come to our meetings and she'll keep track of what we're doing and make sure that we're working together on that. I participated on a panel too at Ridgeline and talked to the government students about what we do here and what's important and getting involved politically. And I think it was pretty successful.
It's always entertaining too.
Yes, they're kind of quiet, some of them, and others are not afraid to ask questions. So it was interesting. One other thing is that I was able to participate with the Cache Valley Chamber. I don't know, how many of you are familiar with Summer Citizens? Okay, good. There are 600 to 800 people that come as senior citizens and spend the summer in Cache Valley. Do you know how much money they drop here? A lot. They pay for a place to live, they pay for their food, they go to the Utah Festival, the Opera Festival, and attend all of those. They are very, very active in our community. And they come here and they don't have kids in school, they don't do anything, they just come and they use their resources here. Well, it used to be run by Utah State, now it's going to be run by the chamber. And they honestly are looking for places for their seniors to live. If any of you know of places that are open for the summer, because that's where students live, please contact the chamber and let them know that you either have a place or know of a place. If you want some company for the summer, I mean, they're wonderful people. So call the chamber. But I was able to go with the chamber. Let me tell you where we went. We went to Sun Lake, Arizona, Mesa, Peoria, Arizona, Surprise, Arizona, Buckeye, Sun City, Sun City West, and Goodyear. So we went to all those places and put on a song and dance about Utah and Logan, Cache Valley, and of course I did a song and dance about Providence. I said, come to Providence and we'll look for places for you to live in Providence so that you can come and enjoy your time here in Cache Valley. So anyway, it's been kind of a busy month. With that being said, I'll close that portion of the meeting and I will entertain a motion for the approval of minutes.
We'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 17th, 2024.
Okay, have a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
I was just gonna say, did they fix that guy's name? I meant to email that and I didn't. It was just spelled 3 different ways. I know it was Parkinson, or Parkinson. I don't know if it matters, but
Oh, it does matter. We need to get names right.
sorry, I should have emailed that, but anyway, it was just, unless it was 3 different people, but I think it was just the one guy, but he had 3 different last names, so if you can just fix
I'll
that.
have Ty take care of that. If you want to
That's
include that in the motion, we'll fix that as we
Okay.
go.
I'll amend my motion to make the adjustments as noted.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright,
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. This is the time of the meeting that we have for public comment. This is for comment on anything that is not on the agenda. And so, if we have anyone who would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda, we can take those comments now. I just want to remind you that we do take compliments as well.
Good evening, Mary Hubbard. I actually have a
Just
question.
pull it down. There you go.
There we go. A question about last month's meeting. I couldn't attend the meeting. It was my New Year's resolution. Was to attend the meetings.
Okay.
So, and I'm trying to figure out what the 5% increase in the sewer tax or the sewer fund or whatever it is. Is that on top of the usual 5% from Logan? So it's a 10%? It'll be a 10% annual increase? Or,
No, that
No,
is.
it's a
the-
match.
That is what's passed.
Logan passed it on. Logan amounts for over 70% of our,
that's my next
Cost.
question. How much of our bill
over
goes to Logan
70%.
and how much is,
Yeah, over
stays in Providence?
70% is theirs, and only about 30% is our cost of maintaining the system. They have
Okay.
70% in the treatment, so that 5%
Includes-
includes that, and it's across. all
Okay.
those.
It's a pass along.
right, and I know what, in Logan, there's a 4 to 5% increase in their bills every year too, so. I was just trying to figure out, cause you had mentioned something about Logan's annual thing is 5% and then this 5%, and I was confused as to,
No, it's 1%, one and the same.
okay,
Yeah.
that just wasn't that clear, and I watched the meeting and I read the minutes and I was like, we're gonna get a 10%. So, okay.
Great question, though. Thank you for clarifying. Anyone else? Matt?
Chris, resident of Providence. I'm here to say thank you to the city council members, Carrie, Kathleen, Janelle, Brent, especially because y'all have been here for a while talking about pickleball. And Ryan, I think we met almost 4 years ago to start that discussion, and those courts were way back there by the baseball fields, and I think that's great for the city to have them and also to be back there for noise. So just here to say thank you, and Scarlett, you were part of that discussion back in the early days as well, so thank you. I have a few other smaller items. I think in the
Thank you
last,
for the comment.
in the last year, I think I've seen bike lanes installed in a number of places, and as a bike rider, I think that's great, so thank you for that. So this one might be a little older. I think the trails in the Von Bear Park have been structurally stabilized in a number of places. And that's good because they're a little narrow and a little steep for some young climbers, so appreciate that. And see, and lastly, I've been working with Ryan and Tara on some fiber issues. And they have helped resolve those and clarify a number of issues, so thanks, Ryan. And is Tara here?
She's not, but we'll pass it on for
Yeah, I don't
sure.
think I've ever met her in person, so.
She's very nice. You should meet her.
Yes.
She's very
I'm
nice.
good at her job.
So thank you, especially for the pickleball. That was a long process, and I don't know all the decision making that went into it, but I'm happy with the conclusion of it, so thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
I didn't even have to remind him to say good things. Thank you. Mitch, did you have a comment?
Thank you. I just want to give an update and a report on the progress of our community broadband project and how
You want to say
amazing.
your name?
Mitchell Shook with Advanced Stream here to give you the update. And so it is the case that I think everybody recognizes now the amazing foresight that this council had, before the pandemic, to recognize the importance of broadband as a utility. And it's unique that Providence has determined that this will be a community-owned public infrastructure similar to roads. Roads carry vehicles. You can choose what kind of car you want to drive. These information highway carry packets of data, and you can decide which ISP you want to pick. And that freedom and that competition is an incredible benefit to the end user. It results in low rates and incredible service, because if one ISP doesn't jump, the next one will. And that competition is the basis of, American prosperity. And you've hit a nerve when you see House Bill 367. And I've been doing this for 26 years. I pioneered America's first community broadband service. And the owner of Comcast flew in and tried to get it off the agenda the day we passed it to the city council. knocked over a mayor's chair and was so upset. And they've never stopped and they never will stop. And what's happening today is deceptive. They're sneaking two lines into essentially a transportation bill. It has nothing to do with broadband or telecommunications or a city's authority for home rule, but they're about to make it illegal for other cities to emulate this important project. So you know you're doing something right when you've got their attention. And you're changing the way a lot of American cities are watching what's happening here. So it's important that we, be faithful to the goal and pursue the objective. They're going to challenge you in every which way. And tonight we'll be talking more about some of that. But today this has been an incredible benefit. Even customers that aren't using the fiber are benefiting because Comcast has lowered rates to try and undermine the success of this project. And I won't promote their service. We're sending, fortunately, their product back. And what they've done to citizens has been abusive. When an ISP is forcing you to be their customer under a contract and holding you hostage and requiring that you rent their router, one that you could buy for 10 months of what they charge to rent it, that's abusive. 4 companies in America control 80% of the broadband in our country. Comcast is one of those 4. So I'm just very grateful to be a part of this project and to be able to report to you that the citizens, I guess we probably have 100 of them, Ryan, wouldn't you say 100 that are using the 5 megabits and for $10 a month. They no longer sending $200 a month to Comcast. They enjoy their television and their free TV. It comes with some commercials, but they have a TV that can keep them company on 5 megabits. There was a time it was our fastest package when we first went from dial-up. We had a 1, 2, and 3 megabit package, it works. $10, that money stays in our community and emboldens our economic base. So I'm just grateful that we're sticking to it. And I want to point out that general benefit that accrues even to customers that aren't using the project. That is a general benefit of utility. So thank you very much for that. You've got an incredible team leading the way on this project. It hasn't been easy. We've had a hard winter. Last winter, getting to all the homes, we thought we'd get to, more homes, but the pandemic also kind of stood in our way at some point. Strata's done what they can do. We've all done what we can do. And I just wish we had more time, to finish the work. And Ryan and I have a great relationship and we'll figure all those things out, along the way. But I encourage you to, my dad used to say, use it or lose it. And he lived in a little town that had a gas station that the gas was more expensive than if he went through town. He went through town every day. He could have bought it in town, but he bought it at our little gas station and it was more money, but he'd say, use it or lose it, and I would say Providence residents must embrace their community-owned broadband. It's your network. And the water's fine, so come on in. See you later.
Thanks for the update. Okay,
Not a man of many words, but I'll share a quick story. I brought a couple of young men here today and to see how the process goes, and I wanted to share. Oh, my name is Brandon Major. And I just want to share a quick story of what you guys did to make our lives better, because it's relevant. So we live in a cul-de-sac that's close to the mountain. It was a very popular spot for young teenagers and college students to go for a very long time while there wasn't houses there. Well, we built our house right next to that cul-de-sac and they continued to come and we've lived there for like a year and a half now. And there were nights that it would be like from 9 o'clock at night until like 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd have 30 cars come and go. They would come play music loud. It was pretty disturbing to our home life. And my wife talked to the mayor. And we put a sign up and we changed some incentives. The neighbor put up some landscaping in the fence. And we have had one instance in the last 3 months since we did that. And so that changed from almost daily to almost never, because of what we can do within the rules. Because, you have like all the laws. And so you have to work within those. You can't just do whatever you want. But within the rules, we came up with a system that works. And so that's just a good example of how you can use, the system to make everyone's life better. So anyway.
awesome. Thank you. We like good stories. Okay, anyone else? Great. We'll close that portion of the meeting and we'll move on to our public hearings. This is the time, these are items that we, by code, we have to have a public hearing on, and we will take comments. With those comments, we may go back and make changes on them, but we like to hear from the public. So we'll go to item number 2. The Providence City Council will take comments and questions regarding proposed amendments to the PCC 4-3 garbage, waste, and recycle. This is something, we don't have a garbage, waste, and recycle code, and so we need to have that in there as we anticipate collecting our own garbage.
Just as a correction, we have this one, but it's changing from the county run to city run. This one is changing the wording from having it under county and Logan.
So we don't have one to collect our own. So, sorry, erase that part of it. Ryan, I'll let you get started with this, but I'll just tell you that our staff has done a great job of pulling all of these things together and trying to make sense of them. And so, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start, and Scarlett has a great report in here as well, that she's done a very good job. But this is, first and foremost, we had Logan doing garbage service. They did that under the direction of a county service area. So we're removing the county service area, the dedication to Logan, and we are modifying and updating this in order for us to have, just as you indicated, that we are having it so we can provide our own garbage service. And be able to have our own trucks, have our own permits, so that we're not sending them to have a permit done through the county. We'll issue the business license or the permit if there is people performing that function inside the city. So I'll have Scarlett just give a kind of a quick update on some of the individual changes. But overarching, keep in mind what we're trying to do is update this so that it is our specific service rather than the county and Logan providing, and that's the goal of this update. Obviously, if anything, keep it also in mind, we're learning. We will learn as we have a service, and we may need to make additional modifications once we have things up and running, and that as we learn more, we'll come back with other changes as we go. So this is a improvement, but please don't misunderstand. We don't expect this to be perfection, because we're still on a very good learning curve on this. So anyway, just keep that in mind. Scarlett, we want to give a update on some of the specifics?
I'm just gonna borrow Ty's chair.
Yeah, please do.
One of the things that this is doing, first, one of the things that I found a long time ago, I used to work in the private sector, and I worked it quite a bit. And then I gradually got into working for Providence City, and I used to look at it and think, oh, why don't they do it like this? Why don't they do it like that? It took a little bit to learn the difference between private sector and public sector. And so sometimes when we pass some of these codes, I think people think, goodness gracious, we can do that a little better. But we get to live under the state code and a few things like that, and we have to do things just a little different. One of the things that we're doing in this code is creating an enterprise fund. So currently, since we have it's just been a pass-through, it's just been part of our utility billing, and it's just gone through general fund. We've collected the revenue, and then when we get the bill from Logan City, we pay that amount to Logan City, and so it's been more like a pass-through. That's going to change. So that's the first change, is that we are creating the garbage, waste, and recycle department of the city and establish an enterprise fund. And so Ryan got to add more to our budget, another fund for him to balance and keep in check. But it does allow us, general fund has some pretty strict rules to the amount of money that you can hold in reserve and things like that. Enterprise funds are a little more lenient and allow you to do capital projects and things a little easier. We look at depreciation in enterprise funds. We don't in general fund. There's just a few things that are different there. So it's an important change though, because it will move this out of the general fund and into its own enterprise fund. And then, it talks about, that we are establishing a garbage, waste and recycle utility, that it's an equitable, efficient method of managing garbage, waste and recycle collection, disposal services throughout the city. Talks about how we're going to bill for the fees. It talks about how we're going to collect those fees. It gives the council the authority to establish exemptions, surcharge, and credits to the garbage, waste, and recycle utility fees by resolution. The council may also fix special rates from time to time. Now, another thing that some people might misunderstand a little bit are administrative policies. When the city council adopts ordinances and resolution, that sets the framework. And then it's Ryan's responsibility as the city manager, working with the staff, to sit down and figure out the best way to meet those, to meet the requirements in state and city code. And that's where the administrative policy comes in. So then the city staff can look at the ways that are gonna help us function better and deliver your, or pick up the garbage and the waste and the recycle. And so the staff will adopt, policies regarding the operation of that department based on the ordinances and resolutions. So that's kind of how those, you wanna chime in?
Well, I like to say that the law is the what, the master plans are the why, and the how is done administratively to accomplish your what and why. We try to facilitate that through the how, but you're establishing by law what we're going to accomplish and why through the general plan and master plans. So, that's how the marriage works. So, and that's why we have administrative policies to answer some of that how we're gonna get your vision accomplished. So.
The other thing that I think confuses people a little bit is because we do reference in our statement, that we're going to include this in our monthly utility billing statement, which we've already been doing. One of the things that happen, the way that we collect the money when you pay your utility bill, it's more like a credit card than an itemized payment of an increase. And so when you pay your utility bill, if your utility bill is $100, but for whatever reason, you only pay 80, instead of looking at it and saying, okay, what does that 80, which 5 things does that 80 add up to? It just shorts all of them. So if you get behind on your utility bill, it's not necessarily that maybe you're not paying your garbage specifically, but we don't know what that is. But if you get behind on your utility bill, it is connected to the water. And so it explains that if you get behind, then the city may disconnect the water service to the customer unless the customer pays the bill, because we don't really differentiate between what portion of your money is going towards. We do when it applies, we apply it in percentages rather than dollars and cents. I mean, does that make sense or is that more confusing?
Oh, makes sense.
Okay, all right. And
Charlotte, just one thing, on line 138, it says recycling sewer. And I don't think the sewer is in recycling, right? It's garbage waste recycling? Line 138,
well, recycling,
I don't think we recycle our sewer.
oh, you're right.
Doesn't it just need to
While
come?
she's doing that, we do have an application for sewer reuse, but we're not gonna recycle it.
Right, but for purposes of this discussion.
Should have said service, I think, instead of sewer.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Shoot, you caught us. We were recycling sewer, but now you've caught up to us.
I wish I had a bag of candy, I would throw you a little candy bar.
Your sewer does get processed in the green waste, and it does go through that, when you buy it from Logan's.
And then there's also, in the event, it talks about the additional charges that the city can enforce. Now, we don't do an additional charge for water, an additional charge for garbage, an additional disconnect and turn on charge for, sewer. It's one charge that encompasses the whole utility bill. But we have to spell it out in each of the utility functions so that they all act similarly. So it does make it look like our ordinances are repetitive, and they are, but there's a method to that madness. And then it talks about how we can, if it comes down to it that it's collection, and we actually are pretty fortunate. We usually can resolve most delinquencies before we have to go to collection, which is a wonderful thing. But if it comes down to collection, it talks about, it gives us the authority how to proceed with that collection. And since it's in the code book, people can look at that and they can see it, and it's all very transparent. And then there's quite a bit that is still the same as it always was. When you're looking at this, the black, is existing code, the colors, are, proposed code. I took into account some of the things that, the council's had this as a study item. And we put, I incorporated those things into it. The other thing that we talk about is if there's a serious health hazard, who's going to, what that actually is, and who, the notice that we send to the person. If somebody contaminates, if they pour some type of a illegal contaminant into their garbage can or something like that, that's what we're talking about. An EPA, identified by the EPA as containing elements. And so this part, is spelled out a little bit differently than it was in our old ordinance, just to keep us compliant with EPA rules and things. It would be really nice if all we had to do was look at the state code and our city code. But when we put these things together, we also have to make sure we're following a lot of those federal regulations. And the cover sheet talks about where the legislative power comes from. Utah State Code gives the city council the authority to use their legislative power by ordinance. And then the city council may pass an ordinance to regulate, require, prohibit, govern, control, or supervise any activity, business, conduct of condition, authorization by this act, or any other provision of law. And then one of the big differences between an ordinance and a resolution, we pass fees by resolution, but we pass fines and penalties by ordinance. So when we established the fee charges through the budget, that was done as a resolution. And when we established our fee schedule, that was done as a resolution. But in order to have a penalty or a fine, that has to be done through ordinance, which, this does take care of that. And then the conclusions of the law that the council has processed this, the Providence City Council is the governing body for Providence. And the council certainly may enact or amend municipal ordinances. The applicant was the city staff, and we filed a complete application, including reasons for the proposed amendment. And the council, in order to continue following the state code, you're doing that right now. You'll turn it over to get more of their questions. And then once you have finished with the public hearing, you can either make a decision or you can continue it for further study. You can make changes to it. You've got a lot of options there. And then we will continue, once you make your decision, Kyle, make sure that it gets posted and everything according to law, and we'll move forward with the ordinance process. So.
Great job.
That's their staff, direction, and so we'll pass it back to you.
Great. At this point, this is a public hearing, so is there anyone that wishes to speak on this particular item? Okay, if there's no one that wishes to speak on that, let's go to item number 2.
Mayor Alder, I just have a question.
Yep, come up to the. State your name and.
My name's Loretta Buckley. I live in Providence. With the new, that Scarlett did such a detailed way of explaining that. Thank you for all of us that are not up on all of this. Do we know, is there a cost associated with it, or do we think it's going to be the same as currently being? We have that pass through to Logan City for the garbage. Do we know that? I'm
I'll
just
let Ryan
asking a
answer
question.
that. He's our research and
So-
spreadsheet guy.
So we have passed, the council passed at the last, council meeting, slight increases that will take effect in March. We believe that should be sufficient going forward. And this ordinance will allow us to have our department, but we believe we can provide, the service at least as, cost effective as Logan has, or better. And with Logan, they always had a profit margin on top of what they were billing us. So we believe that that sticks with the city. So, ultimately, the numbers will feed out in the end, but all of our projections are that we will be able to provide for at least, as good a cost as Logan or better.
Okay, good. So our pass-through really then will go to the benefit of Providence City versus us paying the profit margin on Logan City.
That's
on the
correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's why we're doing this. We wanted to own we wanted to own our own destiny. So thank you for your question. Okay, that being said, let's move to item number 3, Providence City Code 7-12 fiber optics and 11-4-8 fiber system new code. Providence City Council will take comments and questions regarding a proposal to add a new city code regulating the city fiber optic network. So, Ryan, you wanna take
Yeah,
this one?
we'll kind of tag team a similar thing. Keep in mind, we are looking, to adopt a new department. We have, as Scarlett had mentioned with the enterprise fund, that is the mechanism that we use for services that are intended to pay their own way. The garbage one, we intend that the revenue from the delivery of garbage will cover the costs, and creating a enterprise fund will do the same for fiber, that the revenues of the system will pay for the expenses in the system. That's a driving factor that maybe wasn't itemized out with Scarlett's report, but that is one of our greatest benefits of an enterprise fund, is it tracks its own business. And if we have to fund in or out, that's a public hearing to move money in or out of that. So if it's not funding itself, it requires a public hearing to let everybody know that it had that. So it's very transparent that way. But this is about the creation of a fiber optic department. And this allows us to create that. We've looked at several other in the state. There's a few that are operating their own. And we have chosen certain reasons why to make the changes we have. And so Scarlett, you want to go through some of those like you did? And we'll jointly take questions.
One of the things about, the way the state code is that they want to make everything as transparent as possible. So when we create these enterprise funds, we really shouldn't combine a bunch of them, even though they're all utilities. Separating them into their each own enterprise fund is appropriate, the way the state code is written. And it gives a lot more clarity, a lot more transparency. When people look at our budget, they can see where the capital expenses are truly going. It doesn't mush it all together like the collection message for the bill. It separates out the expenses so that we can see how everything works, separates out the individual revenues. And so that's one of the reasons why there is a sewer fund and a water fund and a fiber fund and a Now, hopefully, garbage run. And so, this, I guess to be technically correct, most of this should be completely red because this is all new code. We don't have anything that regulates how to do fiber. Just a quick side note, the planning commission is, also working on a section that will go through the land use because it's going to go into the subdivision ordinance. And what that will do is enable the city to have the developers, notify it, put the conduit in and notify us. As they put their infrastructure in, they can get ready for fiber. Without doing that, then it would be hard for us to make that requirement. So the planning commission is also considering a part, and that part will come to you, probably at your next meeting. They're holding their public hearing next Wednesday. So you'll see fiber twice.
And that's why you'll see it, exempting out some of the development out of this section because it'll be covered in a different section. So that's why you'll see down in one of our items that we pull you'll pull them out of residential so that we can include them elsewhere in the code. So.
The intent of this ordinance is to operate it as a utility, provide broadband access to meet the needs of residents, businesses, city departments, and public agencies within the city. Allow the city to manage and regulate competing demands for the use of the public right-of-way by minimizing the installation of duplicative communication lines and facilities on and over or under the public right-of-way. And there have been times when we've had people come and talk to us, and Rob and I have just looked, and there's just lines and lines in the park strips. One of the reasons why we went to wider park strips was to help to facilitate the various utilities that were trying to come. And so if we can minimize some of that and still provide great service, that's just a win-win. We also want to foster competition among retail internet service providers by providing open access to the city's municipal fiber system, encourage economic development by attracting businesses that require large amount of bandwidth for their operations, and provide for a higher amount of bandwidth in residential homes. We are amending two different sections of the code. We're amending Title I, Chapter 3, definitions and construction, Title I, Section 3, Chapter 3, and then Section 2, definitions. And then we are adding to Title 7, the municipal fiber optic internet system and system use service. And we talked a bit about it and felt like fiber optics is really what we're offering. The ISPs will offer additional services and bundle programs by using our fiber optics, but we're offering fiber optics. Again, the council has got the same legislative power that we talked about in the previous ordinance, so I won't go through that. I did notice one mistake. I don't know why I did it, but I crossed out fiber. I think I must have had something different highlight, didn't realize I had this highlighted, but municipal fiber optic system should stay in the definitions. It shouldn't be crossed out on the line 33 and 34. So that's one change right there. We define it.
Scarlett, there's a typo on line 11.
That's just great. What is the type? Which is the typo?
Dark fiber means blah, blah, blah in the metropolitan area network that are available, not areas available.
Okay, thank you.
There's also an error of line 4. That sentence doesn't read too well.
Access means the use of the fiber system in the form of either broadband
Or transport,
or transport, yep. Thank you,
the use and or.
okay.
This is why we have public hearings.
But it helps. What, one question came up, chapter 7, is where we have our ownership interests. So we own the cemetery, we own the roads, we own certain things. So fiber optics, could have been chosen in 8, which is where our water and sewer is. But garbage is in 4, and so we have different places for different ones. That's kind of a decision for you to make where you want this to fit. That's certainly an option for you to choose, whether you choose it in having it under the asset side of where we have our streets and those kind of rules, or if you have it under the utility. Our choice was under the ownership side because we're not providing content, and we don't provide content on top of the road. We provide the road. In water and sewer, we provide the water content. In sewer, we don't necessarily provide the water, we provide the content. We provide the water content, and manage the in content. So stormwater, we manage the content as well as the asset. So that was staff's direction on that. But you could also see where putting it under utility side would certainly be a choice. We just had to pick one spot, and Scarlett and I thought one way, and so we went that way. But you can certainly choose another, and that's okay.
Yeah, no offense taken on that.
No offense taken in many of these. We had a method to our madness, but it doesn't mean it's perfect, and we're hoping that we'll get some various feedback. You've got some, but anyway, some of the things, we do have the ability to, if we have a boundary line adjustment with River Heights, we want to be able to have them own infrastructure that's in their cities and lease back or have an agreement from us. Because anytime we have a utility inside of another city, then we have to have a rate setting committee for those kind of things. And we'd like to make sure that you're the rate setting body for any of our utilities. But if we start providing services outside, so if there is a change, or we want to be able to provide the ability to maybe lease space in a fiber hut someday to some of the ISPs, or there's certain things that we want to be able to have as abilities on our network. But anyway, I think at that point, that's kind of our summary of where we're at. We have a lot of the same things billing. Keep in mind, water, it's tied to our water bill, because again, it's like that credit card. We don't itemize out what you paid for. We say, here was what the total bill was. You paid this amount, you have this much left. And that's how our billing system works. So it's all under water. And so you'll see that reference there on both the garbage and the fiber optic side. So anyway.
It's more like a gift card. With a
Okay.
credit card.
All right.
We'll take whichever way you want to go. So anyway, that's kind of our report. We're happy to take questions, anything of what why we chose to go the direction we chose. And again, keep in mind, our goal is the 80 to 90%, and we're still learning. We're just transitioning into this, out of the construction phase into the operating phase. We've waited this long to pass it. If you're not ready to pass it tonight, certainly we can take more feedback. We're hoping for public feedback if we get any, and can utilize that. So none of these 3 that you'll see are a rush. We've been working on them. We wanted to present them, and we want to have the department created. We want to be able to get to that, not perfect, but good phase that we can continue to work on as we grow and develop these. So.
Great. So here's the chance for public to speak if they have anything that they want to say about this particular item. The council will discuss it in the next section, which is where we would take action on it. But for right now, Questions, comments? Do we have anybody online? You know, that's one thing I forgot to ask you. I'm sorry. Do we
We
have?
have somebody watching, but nobody has posted anything online. And
Okay,
I didn't receive any, comments via the, or the
city
email.
comment,
okay. All right. Phew. Mitch?
Thank you. Okay, Mitchell Shook, again, Advanced Stream Internet provider on the wonderful project. So I want you to recognize that you're witnessing the creation of a utility, and that hasn't happened since electricity in 1883. And what we're witnessing, reminiscent of what happened during the power struggles, when electricity was monopolized across America by a man named Insull out of Chicago. And when public power was proposed, he hated the concept of encroachment upon their entrenched monopolies, and they fought public power tooth and nail. And it really resembles the telecom struggles of today. And I've had a front row seat to all of that. So we live in interesting times. This is ground zero of that struggle now, as we see with House Bill 367. The father of public power, and we considered him to be Homer T. Bone. He was a senator from Washington State and a district court, Ninth Circuit court judge. And I have some of his diary. He wrote what would have ever happened to him if he hadn't seen the 2 lines in an irrigation bill that made it illegal for the city of Tacoma, which had public power, to distribute their public power to the farmers along the way. They had been stepping down transformers from the dam into the city. And they snuck it in. Legislators didn't even know what they were voting on. And that changed the course of his life. It's in the congressional record. Senator Magnuson wrote a wonderful article about it. And it changed his life. And my life has been changed by these power struggles. So what we adopt here today, this is not about the wonderful leadership that we have in our incredible city manager and the amazing council that's here with us today. This is about a council 20 years from now, because they will never give up. And when they can get those 3 votes with the incredible resources that they have, and I'm speaking of the incumbent monopolists, we all know who they are. And when they're able to get the votes that they need to privatize a project such as this, they won't stop at anything to do that. So what's written into this law is really important. I want you to think of the manager's role. Someday, a different type of a manager, authority that you're giving them should be that of managing like a home. If you're gonna go on, say you're gonna take a world tour for a few years and want your home managed and rented out, you hire a property manager, similar to a city manager, to manage your property. They can repair the roof, they can set the rent, they can do all the things that a manager can do, but they can't sell it. If you came home and found your house sold, that would be beyond their authority, and that probably be not the intent of the agreement. So I want to make sure that that's not in this, that there would be no authority to sell it. Ryan talks about being able to lease some fiber to an adjacent city, and I think that's wonderful. They should have access to public broadband too. And so some of these things that are related to, leasing cabinet space or leasing dark fiber would rightfully be brought, as resolutions. And I think we had an explanation of the difference between ordinances and rate setting under resolutions. So whatever you're going to do with this system, set rates, make them available to all comers, and then not have any sweetheart deals, any special private deals that are just made, off behind behind closed doors. You want it out in the public when deals are made with your system. You're talking about your dark fiber here. And Ryan and I had an incredible conversation about this, maybe was it yesterday, Ryan? And so we see pretty much eye to eye on almost all of this. And, and I was hoping that maybe we could get more time to really drill down on some of the language and that would limit a future manager's authority and, to require them to come to council and have the citizens' interests protected in that way. And some of the language in here concerned me in that regard. There's also the timeline of House Bill 367. It might be very prudent to wait and see what actually happens there. And the reasoning would be that, if that goes in a way that's not favorable to us, I think it would be important to also adopt a resolution and set the rates. The citizens here need some clarity. You know, we don't know, is it $1,000 a drop and who's gonna pay it? You know, are we gonna, is it $350 a drop if you already have the box on your house? I just learned that today and I do this every day. If you have the box on your house, it might only be $350 and it's not clear whether that would come out of excess money left over from the construction phase because we didn't build all 2,700 homes, or would it be paid out of a ratepayer's pocket to join the network? And that would be unfortunate. And then again, if they don't have the box, because we haven't got to all the homes, hard winter and shortage of supplies in a pandemic, what would that be? $1,000. Then they would have to trench and bring the conduit and put the box and all that. So anyway, that's my 3 minutes. So, and I hope we can just defer this for a little bit, because I know there's great things we could do to improve this language that would protect us for decades in the future, when the rubber really meets the road on a project like this. Thank you.
Thanks for your insights. Okay, any more comments? With that, we'll close that and move to item number 4. This is a public hearing that we need to have for the mobile food vendors, PCC. Providence City Council will take comments and questions regarding a proposal to add a new city code regulating mobile food vendors. So, Ryan, Scarlett?
Yeah, we'll start this off. We're a tag team here. You know, this one originally started with our staff member over our business licenses. She looked and said, you know, we're doing business licenses for all these other things. The vendors, mobile food trucks, we're not really managing business license in the same way for them. She went to a conference and came back and said, you know what, we really ought to do something here. And so with Scarlett's leadership on code writing and her expertise there, we tapped her expertise, and between the staff, we came and said, you know what, we probably ought to have something that more regularly defines and regulates this. It's a growing industry. The food vendors have started in several places. We don't have an overwhelming amount here, but as it grows, we want to make sure that we have consistent regulations to our neighbors and other cities, so that we can be able to facilitate that as it does grow. I mean, we have interest in different areas, and so that's kind of what led this, is to be able to have us so that we said, you know what, this is something we probably need to have consistent in the area. So that's kind of the start of it. And we're just trying to be able to say, hey, you know, let's regulate this in an appropriate and decent manner. So anyway, Scarlett?
A few years ago, the state code actually put a chapter in on food vendors. And so we didn't rewrite state code, but we certainly followed it quite to the letter. One of the things that's a little bit different, and again, we have the same enabling powers. However, since state code does have something specific to mobile businesses, Utah Code 11-56102 and Utah Code 11-56103 gives you additional powers to regulate these businesses. Now, one of the things that I want to make really clear is if a food vendor has a business license somewhere else, it's a reciprocal agreement. They don't have to get another business license here. Now, when it comes to sales tax, if they come to one of our events, and that's a state thing, the state has an event sales tax that isn't reciprocal. It's per event. So they may end up having to fill out tax forms specific to a Providence City event, but they don't have to get a business license specific to Providence City. But this enables people that live in Providence City or people that only want to do business or want to start out in Providence City to get that business license, and then they can go to other places. One of the things that's a little bit different about this one is instead of putting because we followed state code as closely as possible in this one. Instead of putting the definitions in our, Title I, Chapter 3, we're just referring people right to the state code, because we're using their exact definitions. That way, if state code changes, we don't have to change our ordinance. Our ordinance will just flow right along with it. State code does give us some discretion in things, and that's where we, the things that we have written, they do have to get a business license or have one from another licensing entity within the state. This one calls that they have to have a separate business license for each mobile food vending unit. So they have to have, if they've got 3 different units, they need 3 different licenses. They can get them all from one community, but they still have to license each one so that wherever they go, they have to display their business license and their health department license and their fire, safety inspection. These business activities, the way this is written, it's in a temporary nature and must be able to be removed from the premises each day. That doesn't mean it has to be moved, but it means that it's not a permanent structure. It's not a permanent building. The thought is they're coming and going. They're mobile vendors. And then it talks about the hours of operation, where to store things. Generally, we don't get in those kind of details, but because this is generally outdoors and they're, because they've just got their little truck and they don't have places for people to sit that are permanent tied down places, we get into how to store their tables and chairs just for safety purposes, so that they don't, if a wind comes up, they don't blow away and damage the vendor's property or anybody else's property. That talks about the review and the approval process for the licensing, talks about where they can do this throughout the city. We were pretty generous in allowing them in many places throughout the city, as long as they follow the rules. There are some prohibited acts that it talks about. One of them that we talked about, and I think it was to avoid confusion, because this is a food vendor. This is not a mobile, this is not like a jewelry salesperson that's got different types of jewelry or different knickknacks and things. This is somebody that's supposed to be licensed through the health department and the fire department. And so if they want to get their logo out there and sell t-shirts and mugs and all of that have their logo on there, that's great. But the way this is written, they don't get to sell t-shirts and mugs and stuff for another company. It's just gotta be their logo to items. And that makes it easier for us to regulate the activity since they are mobile. They can't obstruct the traffic. There's a couple of things that an ice cream truck is treated just a little bit differently than a food vendor, even though food vendors probably do serve children. Ice cream trucks, have to go through a little bit extra as far as background checks and they can't sell out in the middle of the street. They have to sell from the private side of the sidewalk side. They can't sell from the street side, a few things like that. So those are pretty much, we also, food vendors are meant to be walk up. You don't drive up to the window and pick it up. So we don't have a line of cars. We might have a line of people, but we don't have a line of cars waiting to go through the food vendor. So those are kind of the highlights of things that are a little bit different about this, rather than a stand-alone permanent business.
Great. Great explanation, thank you. So we'll open for comment.
Under findings of fact.
You have to come on.
Mary Hubbard. Under findings of fact, what is I mean, I think I know what a political is. It just seems to be a strange term. under
A political.
maybe may require a political what?
Which line are you on?
Where we at?
It's item number 3 under findings of fact. Maybe a city may require a mobile business.
Oh, a political subdivision,
Okay,
because we're a subdivision of the state.
okay, so it needs to be, you just need to add a word in there.
there.
Right.
Thank you.
I just thought it read really funny.
A political what?
Political.
Subdivision. Okay, great catch, thank you. Anyone else comment? Okay, minutes.
Mitchell Schick here. That's Bowtie Food Service, my occupation before the invention of the internet. I own 15 popcorn carts, and I'd like to ask for an exemption on popcorn. And generally, popcorn under the health code is exempt because it's non-perishable and it's non-potentially hazardous. So when I would go to New Orleans and push my popcorn cart down the road, at the parades and so forth, that was a little different because they worked to the Napoleonic Code, and I learned that I had to install hand sync. There was a lot of legalese. I wouldn't like to see that happen. If somebody had a table and wanted to set up a popcorn machine and hand out popcorn, and give popcorn to the people in an event, a lot of times they do it for free. But if there was a way to exempt popcorn from the regulation and make it simple for anybody that's setting up a booth to have a popcorn machine. You've probably seen that at a lot of fairs that you go to. People set up little machines and just hand out the popcorn. But that might be a possibility. It could be considered food, and then they fall into a license and all of a sudden somebody can't have a popcorn machine. So
Okay.
there's that.
All right, great, thank you. All right,
To be clear, he's never brought popcorn to the office. So I have no clear indication whether he actually.
we don't have any experience with that.
No.
Roasty toasty, vitamin D right from the sun, right here. So there goes one.
You're practiced up on that, I can tell. Okay. So, having no more comments, I will move on to the next portion. It's resolutions and ordinances. So this is where the council discusses these ordinances, and we may take action. We may push it down the street if we have too many things that we have questions on, and vote on it next month. So I'll open the discussion for ordinance 02-2024 PCC 4-3 garbage waste and recycle amendments. So I will entertain discussion or a motion and then discussion. What order do you want to do? Let's do a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 02-2024 PCC 4-3.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now let's discuss it.
Okay, can I start?
Yeah. Since you're chomping at the bit, yes, please do.
I have a few things that I've written down. First, I want to say I appreciate all of the changes, Scarlett. But as I've read over it, and I know we discussed garbage versus refuse last time, but then I read through the definitions and I read through the document and I thought, this doesn't make any sense. Because, well, it's sort of like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. I feel like that's what the same kind of situation we have with garbage and refuse.
That is true.
So as I thought about how to deal with it, I feel like the definitions are probably accurate. There are some places in the code that I feel like it's to say if you're gonna collect refuge and garbage, that's redundant. If you list them both. But if you say just garbage, then you're eliminating refuse. So it probably should say it the way you actually did it before. So I apologize for that.
No worries. Did you record what she said so you can go back?
I'll write it up. I'll email it so it makes sense. But then there was a few typo things that I thought. But we never actually defined what waste is, but we use waste in the title. So I didn't go to the full list of definitions. Is waste already defined in the full list?
We define green waste and waste is just a simple, simplified term
Term
for
for
green
refuse.
waste. Nope, green waste. Waste and green waste are the same. If one just, we just
So
have it
maybe we should
use a
clarify
long-
that in the definition to
a
say
long term.
also known as waste or something, green waste referenced as waste.
Yeah, we could
So we
certainly
can
add
clarify that in the definition.
But waste is generally referred to as green waste or waste.
I mean, I pulled out my dictionary for heaven's sakes. I was like,
I
so is
can give
waste
you-
refuse or is refuse waste?
No, and when we buy, garbage cans, they'll sell us waste cans, so they'll sell us garbage, waste, and recycle.
Okay, all right, okay. Already achieved.
The engineer coming out in there.
I'm so
Okay. We need all the comments we can.
So wait a minute, so I'm confused. You lost me between the waste, the green waste and the garbage can,
Refuge is the whole,
right?
refuge is all three.
Yeah.
Garbage is what you have out of your house that's not recycled.
Well,
And green
Well,
waste comes
that's
from
not
the yard.
true. Garbage is compostable.
Yeah, it's,
Refuge is like cartons and all that kind of stuff. I know.
yes,
Spent
yes.
some time with Lester today.
with you,
Garbage generally goes to the landfill, so your garbage will go to the landfill. It can, there is some of it that can be composted, but garbage will go to the landfill. Recycle will go to, Logan's Recycle, or, Hiram's Recycle Plant. And green waste will go to the green waste facility, or green waste or waste, and those two will be, all is refuge. They're all.
okay, so under the definition of garbage, we use the, waste. Says
Yeah,
garbage means waste.
waste for preparation. But yes, you're right. Generally waste is referred to as green waste. So there's a definition difference.
So maybe we should just
Maybe
add,
one's a verb,
add
one's a
waste
noun and one's a verb. I don't know.
Yeah, waste is a,
Try probably can't hear you. No need to be.
It's gonna pick up through here.
Well. You should just.
there is green waste,
Right,
And
we have a
then-
definition of that.
right? But then as you, if you have a stack of paper and you don't use it, and you just scribble on it and scribble on it, and you don't utilize that, that's waste. It's excess, you're done with it, end of story. So there's like market waste, waste from, I can't say the word.
Is
You
waste
probably can.
discarded, discarded material?
Perishable?
stinky.
Yes, yucky stuff. And so
Acceptable.
waste means, along with green waste, it means the stuff that you're getting rid of, the extra, the waste that you're getting rid of. So if it's combined with green waste, that's specifically talking about limbs and trees and whatnot. But then you get with, and they do with the garbage cans, sometimes that's where definitions get a little mushy because they call it garbage can, right?
It just, a green waste can is called a waste
Waste
can.
can and a recycle and a
A
garbage.
recycle can and a garbage can. So
And
there are the
so
garbage
sometimes,
cans, waste cans and recycle cans.
yeah. But waste can be attached to something or it's a
It's an adjective.
adjective.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
Is Webster right?
And it's all,
Webster's right. It's an
We're
adjective.
looking for the 90%. We're gonna refine as we go here.
and it's all.
We're not claiming perfection at all.
I just looked at it and I thought, they did all the things I asked him to do, but that didn't make any sense at all. I shouldn't have asked him to do all those things, so I apologize. No worries. But I do have some typo things. So line 76, it says garbage twice. I think it's redundant. I would strike the second one. Says all garbage subject to, I think should just say subject to collection.
okay.
But it should actually say all garbage and refuse subject to collection. Sorry about that. And then line 80, I thought we should change must to may. You may put your cans out early. but then they must be set out before the hours designated by the city. Which is before 7 AM, everyone. And then I thought it might make sense to say you may put your can out 24 hours before collection. 48 hours sounds like a lot.
I'm sorry, Janelle, which line are you on again?
I'm on line 80,
81, 82.
81. Yeah,
So 80 says that you must not put it out before 48 hours before the collection. We don't want it more than 48 hours. That's what that's saying, right? Yes.
right.
We don't
But
want
she's
to-
suggesting.
Oh, so maybe keep
24.
must. I was gonna say you could change that to may,
It should be.
but it should be must, and then change to 24 hours instead of 48. Would that be helpful, Rob? We didn't let people put their cans out 2 days early?
Depends on the time of year.
Yeah, I know
It
by
would be
today.
helpful for traffic flow.
Yeah,
The one thing that makes difficult is people that go away for the weekend.
that's what their neighbors are for.
Or vacation or,
Ministry.
You're right, that is what neighbors are for sometimes, but
I'm leaving. Will you please put that out and bring them for me? It's a suggestion. People can disagree with me. I don't care.
Well, if on one end it's 24 hours, it just as well be 24 on the other end.
Yeah, because you have to clear it off the road in 24 hours, right?
must remove it after 24 hours.
Yeah.
So for
So that-
consistency, you want both 24 hours.
I think so.
All right, we can make that note.
And then,
While you're on that, let me interject a thought while you're looking. We have a very unique situation going up our street from Third East to the city sheds. Garbage cans are set on the sidewalk. And that presents problems. There's no street you can put it on.
because the road curb.
Well, you can't go out onto the road because it's in the travel portion. So we have to set them on the sidewalk.
Not wide enough.
Now, I don't think the ordinance needs to describe our situation. But again, I'd hate to see a garbage can sit out there for 48 hours on that sidewalk with people out running, jogging in the dark. And that sort of thing.
And it's a black can.
Then it's a black can. I got two of them, two black cans, and our neighbors have them. So I'm not saying the ordinance has to define that, but as we, I don't know how to deal with that, but that's a problem. If they're put on a sidewalk, that's not wise to have that sit out there for a very long period of time. I think the morning of and being gone that night is more prudent if they're put on a sidewalk. That's just my thoughts.
I think that's ideal, but I think we still have to give a 24-hour period before there's any kind of enforcement. I mean, even 7 AM, putting it out the night before, it is reasonable. Of course, it's ideal. The less time, the better.
The other thing that 48 hours does, or 24 hours, is let's say a holiday occurs. And we move the, collection day back a day. And at some point, we want them to stay there, or we have, we have a holiday and when we're behind in collection, and so we want them to stay there. So there may be times that we want them to remain until we have completed our collection and give us holidays or a snowstorm. We may say, just leave it, we still are gonna get to it, but a collection might occur later. The 48 in advance is probably more for those that leave. And as Scarlett said, that's probably being able to put it out before you left. And, I'm leaving tonight on vacation, so I want to put it out, before I go. And, my day's not for another day or two. And so that would allow me to do that. And then my neighbor's good enough to bring it in for me. It allows that. But this is hard enforcement. You shrink and we'll enforce up to that spot, just so you're aware that's that keep in mind there may be times and we want to be able to accommodate for what's there, so.
On 85, it does say 24 hours after they are emptied. So that does give the extension for not getting picked up.
That's true. We just want to remind people not to leave them out there all the time, which happens in some places. I saw some of those this morning. Tipped over. Oops. Covered with snow.
I like those points. In that makes sense, that covers it. My last typo I wanted to point out to you. And then I'll let somebody else be in charge of this. Is on line 95, I think it should read recycle, not removal. Waste and recycle department.
Oh,
Yep,
fairly
you're
good.
right. Good catch.
Well, that wasn't as much as I thought it was gonna be.
Wow, it's the whole garbage refuse thing. I don't know, going back and forth.
Okay.
That could be a very expansive list.
Okay, so further discussion?
I just have one question in relation to line 1 and line 45, if that was an okay reference, if that's what you want. Because, line 1 does call it, 131-3-2 definitions. And, definitions is chapter found in 1-3, which I understand. But is that reference okay?
Should they be the same? Is that the question?
Yeah, should they be the same?
I can certainly make them the same.
If it's
For
applicable,
consistency.
if it's applicable for consistency, it probably would be a good idea.
Okay. So what I'll do, because the way our current code is set up, when it's referring to the title and the chapter in it, then it calls it chapter, like this says, chapter 1-3, which means title 1, chapter 3, but it calls it chapter 1-3. If we change it to the actual reference, then I'll just change chapter to PCC for Providence City Code 1-3-2, so it's consistent with the one up, with line 1.
Okay,
Is that okay?
yeah. That'd be good.
Tell me, since this is online, it's not in a book someplace, can we put links in? To make it easier for people, when we reference a link or another code, can we put those in?
There's ways we can do some, it creates if a broken link is there. There are some links, we do link in our code to the state code, so we have done some of those. We could do some, it just is that balancing act between putting a link and having that link eventually have a change or something, so.
But that could happen.
That's a switch, yeah.
But if we make it easier for our citizens to not have to go type it in someplace, if they can just link to it, I think that would be a nice touch.
So what you want to link is what? Which one?
Well, the state code,
Yeah, the state code's linked, so we have
Okay.
that
All right.
on our online code, that code.
and then when we reference other things, if they're linkable, let's link them.
So if we're reading in 4-3-2, and we read the definitions are found in PCC 1-3-2, you would like that linked, so somebody can just
Yeah.
click right there and go to the definition.
Right.
Good.
And I realize that it might change, and if it does and somebody runs across a problem, we should say, let us know if you run into a problem. But I'd like to make it as convenient as possible for people to read these things and to follow them.
We can certainly work on that.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to accept, a second. We've had discussion. Any further discussion from anyone?
Can I ask one
Yes.
thing for clarification? So Janelle, you want it just to go back the way it was? So like on line
Refuse and
49, it would say, that garbage needs to stay there, and then it would say collection or refuge and take the red garbage out, right? You want me to unstrike refuge and take the red garbage out? Is that what you were saying, to undo what we did?
Yeah, I think it should say refuse collection or refuse disposal,
Okay,
because refuse includes garbage, but garbage does not include refuse.
Okay, all righty.
I'm really sorry, Scarlett.
No worries.
It would be appropriate for the person that made the motion to accept the changes in her motion. So
Okay, I will do that. Make a motion that we accept all the changes as discussed for accepting ordinance 02.
you'd amend your motion. to that.
I'm amending my motion to accept all the changes discussed in ordinance number 02-2024.
Discussed and agreed upon.
Discussed and agreed upon. Does anybody disagree with me? How about we should make sure you agree with what I said?
Good job, Janelle. You're
Okay,
crazy.
so we have, an amended motion. We need a second to that amended motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All right. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
No, I didn't.
Let's hurry and get past this one.
I didn't second.
Okay, item number 6. This is ordinance 03-2024, PCC 7-12, fiber optic. Providence City Council will review, discuss, and may take action on an ordinance that creates a new city code regulating the city's fiber optic network. So I need a motion. Janelle, the only one that's gonna move tonight.
Oh, I think we table this for March so we can look at
Or
it some more.
continue it.
Or continue it, but
Okay.
I don't know if it would be beneficial for staff for us to discuss it. And
If you
give
want to
more
have additional
feedback.
changes so that we can have feedback, that'd be great.
Okay.
So a motion's probably not needed if you want to just discuss. It'll table automatically if you want it to, and we can bring it up at the next meeting. But at this point, if that's what you'd like to do, then tell us what feedback you want, and we'll make those amendments.
Okay, so, we won't have a motion to accept or reject. We'll just discuss it and put it off till the next, make those changes and put it off to the next meeting. We don't need a motion to put it off, right? Okay. All right, so let's discuss the ordinance.
I just want to start in the whereas statements. On the line 24, I guess it's 25 and 26. I don't think that we declared the intent of the city council to proceed with the installation of fiber until we actually accepted the contract with Strata. I feel like July was when Zions Bank came and gave us their feasibility study. And then we did a whole heap of homework through the fall and the winter. And then, I don't know if the date should be in February or if it should be in December.
Probably February. You're probably
Like
accurate.
2021.
February of 2021. The date should be then. We signed the contract.
I don't know the
And then went
exact
out to
date, but
bonds, and then started construction in May. So we accepted it, passed it in February, and went out to get bonds between February and May. And started construction in May once we'd acquired bonds. So February would probably
So
be
we'll
more.
fix those
Yeah.
dates.
I think that was, should be.
Can I make one comment while you're looking through all of this?
Yes,
Um, to kind of help with one of the things that Mitch said, there, again, this code does not give Ryan any additional, or the city manager, any additional power than what you've already given him through the city manager ordinance. In order to sell, property and other assets, there's a place in our code that spells out how to do that as well. So, and in state code. So the city council is in charge of laying out the framework as to how this, municipal fiber optic internet system and service is going to be, handled. What staff does, after you lay out this framework, then we will say, okay, it makes sense to have the developer do this at this time, or procedurally, not necessarily by ordinance, because we've already, hopefully we'll get that ordinance that says developers, you gotta do this and this and this. But then we can write a procedure that says, this is the best time to do that. This is the best time to do this. That's the administrative function that Ryan and staff would do. Ryan and staff would not just sell stuff.
Could not, would not, could not.
Yeah.
a desire to do so.
No, so,
We've been
but
through that
it's
process.
not spelled out like that, but that's because there's other protections in both city and state code that detail what authority the city manager has.
Okay.
So,
Good point, thank you.
okay.
Okay, what other comments do you have about this that we need to have changed before we bring it back?
What is going to be the official title of this enterprise fund?
Fiber optic network is what we've had and looked at in the past.
So we have in here, it's called the Municipal Fiber Optic Internet System Use and Service. Is that gonna be the official title of the ordinance, the fund we're creating, the enterprise fund? Is that what we're gonna call it? I'm
Well,
I'm
at this
just
point,
wondering how we wanna identify it.
that may be the long title. Municipal fiber optic internet system is probably what we would call the system, and we'll slang call that, fiber optic internet system, or fiber optic system as the most abbreviated. But to be full in this one, I would say that the name would be Municipal Fiber Optic Internet System. And this is the use and services of that system. So that's defining the name. Would you agree?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what this would propose, but we can change it how you like.
I
But
don't
fiber
have,
optic system is what we have historically called it to the public, as our fiber optic system, or fiber optic network.
the term telecommunications has come up as a possible, what we're doing, Providence Telecommunications. But as I have studied telecommunications, I'm not sure that's what we're doing.
It's a
It is
broader
a-
term than.
It is a fiber optic. We are providing fiber optics throughout the city. Telecommunications seems to incorporate more functions and more facets than what we're doing here. As a city, we're providing utility that is a fiber network throughout the city. Unless I'm misunderstanding something, and that's why I'm questioning to make sure we identify what we really are doing here.
I think our long title is being proposed as Municipal Fiber Optic Internet System, and we could remove internet because we're not actually providing the internet, we're providing the municipal fiber optic system. So we would scratch internet and leave it to.
Well, we're
municipal.
providing the hardware.
Yeah, you could say
We're
broadband
providing fiber
infrastructure,
Yeah.
or you could call it, yeah. But I think the more.
Yeah, let's, under broadband, is there any other type of broadband or anything within the broader definition of broadband that you're thinking of providing with this fund?
Nope, this has been
I don't
enough.
think so.
No, I don't want
Not for this
Maybe more
council.
I'm just being open.
For the other.
But I
If
do
we're
think the
talking about
point
that
has been
square,
made about consistency between all of the layers of code. From state to county to, federal. So that might be something to consider.
if you use broadband, then every time it's referenced elsewhere, you're including in the same definition. That may be good and it may be bad. You might want that to be consistent, but you also might be.
Consult Webster.
Okay.
I just think we need to be
Works for me.
careful, even in this titling, that we keep ourselves, we need to be really careful to keep ourselves free as possible from litigation and from the crosshairs of of big business. And I think having a more narrow definition might be helpful in that way.
That's kind of my thoughts on it. Let's narrow it down to what we're really doing. The system that we're really providing. And identify it as that is what we're doing here in Providence, and that's our enterprise fund. Our enterprise. Yeah, what we're doing.
Which is fiber optics.
Right.
So then municipal fiber optic system.
Yeah, without internet.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're just providing the fiber optics. We're not providing internet. We're not providing any communication. If somebody wants to type an email to somebody, they can do it, but they couldn't do it without Mitch.
Right.
Or any of the other
Or
items.
any of the
Without
other
an
ISPs.
ISP.
They can't type on our system without an ISP. And we're just providing the means to get it from one user to another user. We're not end users or anything like that. So I'm just saying, let's keep it where it's at. What we really are.
Another one that does, and I agree with, and I think Mitch and I are on the same page, that one, but that also limits the excess dark fiber. We're not in the business of getting into dark fiber for other people. We're providing a fiber optic network, and we're not providing other things.
Content or anything.
Yeah, there might be those who come and want to use the dark fiber for something else, but that's not
our intent.
That's not our intent. We have dark fiber for our growth and that's what we have it for.
Okay. What other comments do we have?
Is there anything in the ordinance that locks every citizen into that monthly fee that I need to be aware of? And all the
This
other
is not
stuff?
in this ordinance. This
Okay.
is the creation of the department.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anything in this with 712.7 service fees that,
This is not about service fees. This is that you can establish them,
because
obviously.
this is what it is. it's
This
in
is the
place.
department. That would be a different motion and movement. And we've kind of waited until after the legislature passes or not passes, the House Bill 367. And so that's not on the agenda at this point. It has been talked about. It's something you ought to be thinking about what you want to do. This is the creation of the department, so no.
Okay.
Sorry.
This enables you to charge those fees at some point.
Which you're already
Yeah.
charging.
Okay.
Just making sure,
No,
I'm missing
no,
it.
that's a good
Okay.
question. And on the record, this is
Yeah.
not that.
Okay, so,
So I have another, when you get a minute,
okay, go ahead.
mine's in 712.2. B, and it says in essence that everything related to the fiber we transferred to the fiber system utility. We don't transfer because we have a water line in the city road or a sewer line in the city road. We don't transfer any right of ways to them as a utility. Would we, in fact, are we transferring a right of way for that cable to the fiber? We call it our fiber,
Municipal fiber.
system
Optic
utility. Do we have, okay, it's city owned, do we have to transfer the right of way to that utility?
So let's make sure, what line are you on?
I'm on, that would be like
43,
43 through 40.
50.
No, excuse me, I
I'm
apologize.
looking at 50.
B, it's 48 through
48.
50.
So right now, we don't have, we don't have all of the infrastructure. This is allowing, if there's any infrastructure that's been installed under the general fund or under a different fund, this is allowing that to be transferred into the fiber department so that the fiber has owns its own infrastructure. Just like the water owns the water lines and the sewer owns the sewer lines. Providence owns them, but that fund is responsible for it.
So here's a bit of a misnomer, and I'm gonna make a connection to council. We have established an enterprise fund. It might be no surprise to you, but we've established that. In fact, we budgeted for it. We've budgeted for an enterprise fund. We've operated under an enterprise fund. We just didn't have the law to create in that, and we did it. We operated it. Accounting wise, we're operating it. We're planning to depreciate these assets with inside of the fiber optic network. So the revenue covers that depreciation expenses. So we're operating that. In all material respects, these assets are not transferred anywhere because they have all been built inside of this, this to be created enterprise fund. By law, we're coming back and we're saying, okay, we got the cart before the horse, and we understand, we agree that cart got before the horse. But the enterprise fund is what we discussed when we started the fiber optic network. That was all discussed, and it's been through your budgets for years. The ownership of this asset is truly in the enterprise fund already. So the transfer is truly just, if we had it in the general fund, if we went back in time and created the general fund, then we would move it to the enterprise fund, but it's already there. Because we already have the fund, it's already being created, it is already established in there. There is really no transfer of any kind of asset. They've all been constructed and built with inside of, and if we bought right of way to build the network, we would transfer that in. But at this point, we would have bought it all in there anyway. So I apologize that the cart got before the horse on that one, and we're coming back to fix some of those things. But keep in mind, the assets of the fiber optic network is owned and managed inside of that enterprise fund so that we can manage it like a business, depreciate it like a business, operate it that. And so I apologize, we did get a cart before the horse, and I totally agree. But I think it's transparent with that cart before the horse. We're fixing it now. So that's what we're trying to do. Does that help?
That helps.
Okay.
A right of way is over the top of the ground and easements under it.
A right of way is an owned property right, and an easement is an access.
Easement is an access. So are you giving the part of the ground that conduit lies in the street? Is that right of way? I mean, this is a little issue that I have in my mind, what we're actually doing here, because the city owns it.
Right.
And
We haven't got that splitting the hair of a 30-foot road and giving an inch and a half to the.
And
We haven't, no, in answer to that question, no, we've left that to the streets department to open the right of way.
I'm just wondering if we need to take a look at that.
Yeah, it's a good question. We haven't looked at that one, so if you want us to, we certainly can.
I would really like it. It just doesn't set right to me. In that,
You don't want,
three.
to make sure, you don't want us to transfer the right of way from the general fund to the fiber fund for that inch and a half. Is that, I mean, I'm just trying to reiterate, to make sure that I understand.
It's the general fund, yeah, because general fund would have the streets. I don't know. I don't know what's right, what's legal, what should be done. I don't know. I mean, we don't transfer water right away. It's just in your street. We didn't transfer the sewer.
Right, we could strike right of way. I don't think
I
there's
don't
any
know.
right of way. I don't think there's any right of way transferred. If that's the piece, I don't think there's been any right of way or intention of right of way, unless it's solely for that purpose. I don't think we're gonna.
So is this is an accounting thing?
Yes.
Ultimately, yes.
Okay. So it's an accounting thing, it's not a physical thing.
It would be, because we depreciate our assets inside of enterprise funds, we expense them directly inside of the general fund. But to your point, if right of way is one, we could certainly strike right of way. That, I don't think right of way is really, I mean, that was just broad in the term of everything we made transfer. So we could certainly strike that.
But don't, if you look at it, it says interest in the right of way. So I think it's
Not
talking
transferring the
about
right of
all of
way.
the stuff that actually, it's talking about where it is located, but it doesn't include like actual property of land. You say that because it's inside the right of way. Because it lists all those things, fiber system, facilities, equipment, property, and property rights.
The sewer's in the right of way,
In
the
the
water's
right
in the
of way.
right of way.
It's.
I don't know, does that sound right?
I promise you, I'm not gonna do the accounting for the inch and a half to take that out of the street. I promise you that. I really don't wanna get into that of the inch and a half.
Subtract it out of the general fund into this.
So if striking it helps to make it so we're not gonna do that, then I'm not gonna do that. But as is, it's, the fiber system can use the right of way for its system. I guess that's what was.
And that's true.
thought.
And we acknowledge that, just like the water can use that right away. The sewer can use that right away. And you don't do the accounting for the sewer and water, do you? And the enterprise fund for the right of way in the road?
No,
No. So
No, but
I,
we do the accounting for the sewer lines and the water lines under the road that is within the right of way.
but not the
I
actual
understand.
right of way.
separately.
yes, understandably, yeah.
Yeah.
So
However,
right of way is a location, it's not like an
Right.
asset. Right?
a right of way, well, I don't know.
It's,
You
It's an
tell us,
asset.
we're happy to change however you like.
It's an accent.
Cause I grew up on a farm and I know what right of ways mean. That means it. Okay, you guys do it the best way you know how. I know what right of ways mean. Means people can take control of it.
Yeah, at that point, if you have a right of way, it's the ownership, the city owns, what is in the city right of way is city owned property. And we can, yeah, if you're operating or when you sell a right of way to somebody to come through your farm, you've basically sold the property.
You have. Fee
simple sell,
That's right,
absolutely.
absolutely.
An easement, you still own it, but they can cross it at will. But yeah,
But
absolutely.
I guess if the idea ever came coming down from the legislature that we could not own the fiber, I don't know if that'll ever happen. If something happened that we could never own the fiber, what are we dealing with? Now, that's just a thought. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, the state, the nice thing is the state owns a lot of fiber as well. So if they dictate something, they gotta eat a lot themselves, I hope. I don't know I don't know what we'd do to cross that bridge.
Yeah, that's my,
That's a what
the
if.
thought that it crossed my mind.
And that's a good reason why we should never privatize it either, because that, having a privatized utility underneath our road it causes us problems with our other utilities that do that, so.
Okay,
Is there
So-
anything in the ordinance that talks about removing a drop from the street to the house? Just curious.
I don't believe so. We haven't.
And the right of way from the street to I mean, who would want to though? I mean,
We could
I mean-
abandon it. You would want it,
I was just wondering, because
because
there's the right of way from the street. to
let's
the
not give
home.
them any ideas.
the simple answer is I think that, no, we don't have that.
Do we need it if someone wanted it removed from the home to the street?
I think
Is there a right of way from the street to the home? Cause that's where the fiber goes, the drop.
Not a right.
Just curious.
easement.
easement,
It's like
easement's not
easement,
right.
that's an easement.
Yeah, that's easement.
I'm just wondering.
But it is city owned property.
The easement is,
Shouldn't be able to take it out.
No, not on their private property, cause he's saying from the home.
From the home to the street. Yeah. We haven't got that. That's probably part of the 10% that we don't have perfected. So I'm gonna
Okay.
say that we don't have it.
I mean, I don't know who would want to do that, but
If
I'm
it
just
came,
wondering if it would need to be put into the ordinance.
yeah, if it comes up, then we'll,
Change the ordinance.
we'll maybe address the ordinance.
And my only other comment would just be, he mentioned defer it till later, and I just was wondering why.
Well, the corrections need
We're
to be
waiting.
made
Right,
and
corrections.
then we'll
There are too many corrections, so
we'll
come back to it.
come back to it
in a
next,
month.
on the next meeting.
I was in favor of deferring it at the beginning of the meeting, but it seems like the corrections really are not any more than the last
Right, I'm just wondering. why
ordinance
kick
that
it
we
to
voted
next
on,
month?
unless Janelle needs more time to study.
I love
That's
studying.
That other 10%.
Do you feel comfortable with its location in the code in chapter 7?
Yes.
I do too.
And we talked about the definition and the title.
One thing it did list in the warehouses, to list the bond. And we could reference more detail to the bond if we wanted to. I think that was one of the concerns you brought up, was it? In the warehouses.
I had a lot of concerns. I didn't really get into any
I
of those
understand.
tonight. I didn't know that this was going that way, but okay.
So. Anyway,
We can defer it if there's things you feel that could be worked on. But as far as our recommendations,
it's your ordinance, I'll follow whatever you want.
I'll work on it a little more.
Janelle's
I'll
gonna
come
work
work with you on it.
Yeah, I think it needs to be continued.
Okay,
Please
okay.
continue.
All right, so we will move on then to the mobile food vendors. We may or may not take action on that. But I think there are fewer questions on this. So I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 012024. Providence City Code 3-13 mobile food vendors.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
I have a question on line 27 where it talks about having a license within a current calendar year. Is that like within 12 months or is that within like January 1st to
Most
January?
business licenses are issued over a calendar year and then they get partial year, but we renew them all at the same time. They're not renewed by their anniversary of when they came. We renew all on
On the
an
calendar
calendar
basis.
basis, yeah.
Okay.
So that's for our, that's how we operate.
That's how other cities do it too, don't they?
The other cities I know of do it that way.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Further
This
discussion?
might just be a point of clarity, clarification on background information on number 2. Says mobile food vendors frequently come to the city to sell their products. Most have had a business issued by another municipality.
Oh, should say business license.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah.
Sorry.
Cities don't issue businesses, right?
Can you sign up for one?
We can work on it.
Okay,
Question,
Question?
just for clarification too, on line 94.
Okay.
Where it talks about selling out of the side of the vehicle on the curb, but it says selling on the edge of the roadway on the right side of the vehicle. Do you want to say passenger side or make some clarification? I think the right side depends on which direction, you're facing the vehicle, whether from front or rear. Does that make sense?
If you are in the lane of traffic and you are on the right side, selling out on the right side,
So you're
that would be the curbside. So it would
from the
be,
driver then, yeah.
right, and a car could be, I guess,
I think curbside would be really what we're seeking.
because if you're across the street, you can be ticketed for going the wrong way.
But we want them to sell not on the traffic side, on the curb
Correct.
side.
I think we can make a change to.
Anything, whether you're towing a trailer or you got a vehicle that's got a motor in it, the right side is the curbside. Whether you're towing a trailer, whether you're driving a truck, whatever, the right side is the curbside.
But for like a garbage truck, they drive, the driving, the driver won't be on, will be on the right rather than on the left. And in a mail truck, or a mail carrier, well, not that they're selling it, but just to give an idea that if you're passenger side, it may be
And
different.
sometimes ice cream trucks are mail trucks. Old ones.
But right side's
Yeah, I think
always
curbside.
the
I
front.
understand that right side's the, you know, if you're going on the right side of the road, but if someone's crossed the lane of traffic or something, I just think there's a clarity in saying curbside.
We could definitely make the curbside change.
I think we should strike line 63. We do not have a recreation district on the books in our city.
We do.
We do.
I looked through the whole zoning map. Where is it?
We don't have anything zoned that way, but we do have a recreation district in the
In the code,
code.
but not on the map.
Not in a signed area.
I see, okay.
I think we also have a, mobile home park.
Mhm.
Cause that's required by state code.
But that,
We
we
have
also
one, but
have
not
that on our
on-
map.
I don't think there's one on the map.
There's one. It's across from the elementary school.
Yeah,
There is a
No, but it's
mobile
not
home there,
zoned that
but I
way.
don't think that's the zoning of the
they were
district.
grandfathered in.
Yeah.
There's still.
Is there? There could be. It could be.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 8 is, 04, let's see. 2024 amendment to city personnel policies and procedures manual. The Providence City Council will review, discuss, and may take action on a resolution amending the city's personnel policies and procedures manual revised September 16th, 2020, section 12, retirement per new URS standards. So this is a request from the state.
From
That
the
we put this
Utah
in.
retirement system, yes.
The Utah retirement system didn't know it. And this is the only thing they could find, and we're happy with our department. We're happy with our human resource, staff, and, Diane did a great job in responding, and the rest of our staff. And if this is all that URS can find that we're not compliant with, then we would propose that you adopt. There are changes, and it is fairly minor in it, but we can go in great depth to talk about it if you like.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
I'll make a motion
Okay, we have a motion.
that we approve item number 8, resolution 04/2024. Amendment to city's personnel policies and procedures manual.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, that was lightning fast. Okay, we don't have any agreements, contracts, or bids, no plans or other business. We have 2 study items. One is an unsolicited proposal for city waste collection services. This was, we didn't solicit it, it showed up, and, I've been through it, Ryan's been through it. So,
They're here to talk about it if you have any questions.
awesome. I wondered who the guy was back there with the
Yeah.
hat.
Maybe just
Gotta
sit at
read
the
the
table in
logo on
case,
the hat.
and sit at the table in case they have questions, but they may or may not.
Okay. Is there anything you want to tell us in preparation?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is
What's your
Keaton.
name?
My name is
Okay.
Keaton Haviland. I'm one of the owners at Clean Slate.
Okay,
We're a local company. We're based in Logan. I just, if I could, just give a high level overview of,
high level works.
okay. There's been a lot of changes in the city, as you well know. In submitting this proposal, we feel that it highlights everything that the council has noted that they're they're hoping for out of their plan. It retains the, revenue generation to Providence City, at least from their margin standpoint. It provides additional stability. We're in the garbage business. We understand it. We have personnel that are trained. They know how to operate the trucks. We daily go through the challenges of tires and fixing equipment. And so we feel that there's a lot of value in that regard.
I was surprised at the tire thing. Going out in the landfill, they lose a lot of tires, I guess.
Yeah, this week we fixed 3.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very consistent thing. Sometimes you run into lines at the tires. There's been reports across the valley when the change first happened of the arms not being calibrated right and garbage cans falling into garbage trucks. We have a mechanic on our team that would take care of that and handle that. So there's just, from our point of view, there's little downside to the city and a lot of upside. I think it's a great thing what you've done and the decisions you've made for your residents. In addition to that, the front load side, you guys have ordered, Providence City has ordered 1 front load truck. We would come in and provide a second front load truck. That's a business that we're looking to grow in. In the garbage world, there's a saying that 1 truck is no truck and 2 trucks you can operate on because there's so many moving parts. They break down. These newer trucks, some of them do great. Some of them have some issues right out of the gate. So, yeah, we're excited. We're grateful to that you've allowed us to come here and present this. So
The trucks we've ordered won't have any problem.
that's what I'm saying too. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Would the truck that you provide be in simultaneous operation with city trucks? So
Or just an extra.
that, or is it, is it?
No, it would be predominantly used daily. Our plan would be to operate Providence's city trucks on the garbage. And I know there's been a lot of talk about terminology, but essentially that truck would be run to the landfill. Our backup truck would be used to continue to do recycling operations. So if one of those trucks went down though, we can still make it work. It just is more in a day because you've got to go dump at the landfill, clean out your truck, go pick up the recycling route and then take it to Hiram. The other benefit that I failed to mention is Logan City has advised that come this July, they're gonna be adding, they're gonna start charging for green waste. They don't know what that fee is. Within our pricing, we've secured an arrangement with another business here in the valley to dispose of that. So should Logan City's rate be more than what the current rate change allows for, our pricing is locked in regardless of that.
So the green waste would not be going to the Logan landfill.
It could if it remains cheaper. We've secured a secondary option,
Just
just negotiated a price. If Providence City has just gone through the ordeal, if you will, of changing rates, we don't really know what that new green waste fee is going to be from Logan City. So it just provides some security there.
Okay. Other questions?
So one of my concerns with either Providence providing our own service or you is growing pains. Like how many cities are you currently serving and how are you prepared for future growth?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why we're really invested in Providence. Historically in this valley, due to exclusivity agreements, we've only been able to offer roll-off services. So we haven't been able to operate, if we wanted to do residential or front load commercial, we would have had to go outside the county. We've focused on roll-off operations.
I don't know what roll-off operations.
Sorry, like a big 30-yard dumpster that you
Just
put
the
a
ones that we had
construction
at
site.
Okay.
at the green waste dump facility by the shop.
Okay, so it's like a side.
Those large ones were ones that that they are like a trailer and they pull on to a large truck and they roll off those large truck. They,
Got it.
instead of having ones you dump in like a,
Got
they're actually a trailer that you pull on and you roll off. So
Cool.
So they remove the whole thing and take it out and
Yeah,
dump
that
it.
makes sense.
It's usually been, usually the distinction has been, we've been allowed to do C and D, which is construction debris or short-term rentals. So, but prior to all the contract changes within the valley.
Okay, so do you currently have contracts to do what the service you're providing or offering to Providence?
On the residential side, we do not. We service businesses that we have daily pickups and disposals of, daily, weekly, on regular routes. We do short-term pickup. There's a lot of a crossover in the trucks and the equipment. Currently have 5 drivers, so we have a team.
How much do you feel you would need to expand if you took on Providence
As far as personnel.
personnel?
We'd probably hire an additional one. The other benefit to our proposal is currently you have 3 waste streams. Every single one of those waste streams are picked up daily. Each one of those goes to potentially a different site. We would run, on the residential side, we would run 2 drivers at the same time, a black garbage can route, and then the other truck would run the recycling and the green waste. We anticipate we'd probably pick up 1 more personnel, potentially 2, as the city grows and what front load capacity does.
I got a question for you. So, unless maybe I haven't read it thorough enough, but how are you insured and bonded? How are we covered? We're giving you our trucks. How are we insured? How are we protected?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if something happens to one of our trucks, it goes down, you have a wreck, something happens to our vehicles, how does that work?
So you would be insured, so the trucks would be insured on our policy for full coverage. Providence City would be listed as an additional insured on that policy. So from a liability standpoint, should an accident occur, someone get injured, things of that nature, you would be protected under our policy. From a physical damage standpoint, we would insure that vehicle. Providence City would be listed as lost payee on that vehicle.
I think, it sounds interesting. I think we need a lot more details.
Sure.
We need to know, what your total liability would be as far as, so you got sued for an accident or something like that. I think there's a lot of avenues we need to look here.
yeah, at that point, insurance wise and contract wise, the initial introductory of this is if there's interest. If there's interest, then he and I can visit about detailed negotiations and bring something back of a detail. This is just his proposal and we want the council to see, if it's even an interest. At this point, it's kind of a thumbs up or thumbs down that, yeah, we're interested in maybe considering, or, we're not interested at all and we cut ties. We don't want to get into contract discussions or into those kind of things until we have at least an idea whether you're even interested in that. Cause if you're not, then we don't want to go any farther than the little discussion we've had. But you're right, we'll take it to our insurance company, and we'll say, hey, you know what's our insurance level? What would be our insurance level on a truck? How much do we need? And we will have our own insurance, as well. We'll have our umbrella and some of those kind of policies on our side. But having it insured on their side, that they would be the payer first one, and they would have an umbrella policy to cover us and make sure.
I probably didn't go too deep into it right now.
No.
Our interest is advantage and disadvantage.
Well, and I would want us to make sure that we can keep within the pricing that we've
I
assured our
believe,
citizens that will be there.
price wise, I believe we can make that work. So if it's price, I think we can, the price proposal they have, they're talking about adding one. we would be talking about adding to their benefits are different than our benefits. So there is some differences there. This is very similar to the idea of Strata being the operator and we are the owner. So we would own and control our assets. And we would have a partnership for the operator of the facility that we would then own. So that's kind of, from that perspective, we're owning that asset. We're owning the cans, we're owning the dumpsters, we're owning the trucks and their.
But you'd be hiring them to drive our trucks.
Right.
And yeah, I think we're kind of early. I'd like to know from whoever's in charge of this refuse collection department, you know, if it's needed or not, and we don't know
This is
until we,
just a study.
until we take over full time, right?
Yeah, you're in charge. So
So
This will be
I'm
your
in charge.
department.
Okay. I'll charge them. Once Logan drops us completely and
Rob
we're
will
doing
do the
garbage collection on our own.
come
I
on,
think
Nate, we'll have
at
space.
at that point, we'll know better if we need extra support or not.
Well, we would need to make the decision before they drop us, because we're either making the decision to employ additional people or the decision to contract it out, and that decision has to be made before. By not making a decision, we're deciding to do it ourselves.
Well, that's what we did decide, to do
Well-
collection ourselves.
Right.
And
We
I'm
were gonna
really,
hire people to drive our trucks.
Yep.
And now you're just saying, let's hire this company.
Oh, no,
Right.
they've come and made a
All
proposal.
right, I'm talking through it.
Right. Yes, this is.
I'm not talking about insurance and liability, just
Right, that's exactly
what are
right.
they doing? They're
Right,
they're
but I
gonna
do
work
think
with us.
there is a timing to consider, right? Like, if they already know how to use the trucks versus us hiring people and training them how to use trucks, like, is there a benefit to that transitionary period, you know?
And that is my question.
Maybe.
Who's in charge of this department? How do you feel about this? That's what I wanna know.
that's what I've been trying to
That's
pipe
my number
into.
one
I would love
question.
to talk to Rob.
Rob,
What's that, Rob?
that's the
And
question I was
his
trying to get to
opinion. Yeah.
while I was being interrupted.
Come
That's
on
okay.
up, Rob.
Dignity index.
I wish I knew more about the garbage world than I do. I've got a learning curve like the rest of us probably. So seeing a proposal like this, I'm entertaining it, to put it mildly. I don't fear the learning curve because I don't think it's really, really difficult. I think we can find drivers. I've got optimistic possible candidates already, but it is a new realm for us. And so if pencil to paper, dollars and cents makes sense, to maybe send it over to somebody who's already got that forte and they've got some other backup truck, and there's some positive things in his pros list that I like entertaining. And so that's where I'm at.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's how I was getting to. Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
So I have a question.
Yeah, I have more.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, so I really, thank you, Rob. In the proposal, on page 5, it says, that this proposal would cost less than creating a waste collection department for Providence. And I guess, if we decide to entertain it, I just would like to know if that's true, because I think there's also an upside if the city hires a couple more drivers, then they have them for days like today. And so I think there's definitely pros with contracting it out, and having less workload for the city staff, but also pros for keeping it within our own control. And I think that I think that we have
Well said,
to
agreed.
look to weigh those. Yeah, we have to look a little more closely at the contract before we can make a decision about which direction. But if Rob is open to entertaining it, and Ryan doesn't think it's a terrible idea, then I think that it's worth entertaining the prospect of contracting it out.
And I think that's what Ryan is saying. If you're saying, no, we absolutely don't want to entertain that, then we won't, but he's saying if you're interested at all,
Let us
then,
know.
then he'll do the homework that it takes to answer those kinds of questions.
So I, for one, am interested in more information. That's where I stand.
Yes, and in your discussion, I like trial contracts, short term. To decide whether, so if you do make a contract with someone.
Committing.
Well, that would be,
you'll
that would be us
commit-
that would do
You
that.
commit to a few, maybe
At some
a few
point,
years at a point.
yeah, at some point you'll control the term. The nice thing is, so standard, garbage contracts, and you can weigh in, but standard garbage contracts are generally a 5-year, plus another 3 or 5 year. Oftentimes that 8 years is because that's the length that you can get a truck to operate. Usually in a city operation, you think that the truck will last about 8 years. That's our budget model. That's our finance model that we plan to replace it every 8 years. If you contract with somebody and they're gonna have to buy trucks in order to facilitate your service, then they need a time period to return that investment. To your point, if all of their investment is labor, which they can then lay off at a fairly short period, the length of time doesn't need to be nearly as long, right? Because it's not, I mean, we might want one that is a 2-year trial with an extension of 5 years if we like it, but we could have a short introductory one, because if it doesn't work, we still own all the assets, and all we have to do is give 60 or 90 or whatever the notice is, and we hire our own one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a shorter period is very easily doable when they don't hold the assets. If we're requiring them to contract and hold assets, we owe it to them to have the ability of time to return money on the asset. If
But
you
that's-
disagree, is that wrong?
That's all part of your research that you're gonna do and bring back.
Yeah, I thought the $1 a month for the rollaway green waste sounded intriguing.
I think Rob has a.
But I don't know if it,
On that one.
well, bringing it every day and taking it away every night, I don't think ensures a lack of abuse, but I'm not really sure that you could have somebody secure the site checking city bills.
I'd like to have us put a pin in that one, because I think that's something that's a lot bigger deal than he thinks it is, and so I'm a no there, but and I'm not sure where Rob's at on that one.
Been
But
a big problem.
yeah, I think there's that
There's a lot of
problem.
interest, but
And
it's
a
a lot of
really
problems, Paul.
Well, the interest is more vocal interest. I don't think there's that many people who really care. I just think those who care have spoken up. Or maybe more in your neighborhood because it's so close to you, but I think, 2/3 of the Providence residents don't live that close to it, and it's not that big of a deal, run to the dump.
I think that you're right. I've heard a lot from my neighbors. They think that it should be there. But proximity probably.
Proximity has
Yeah.
because I've heard nothing except in city council meetings from your neighbors.
But it wouldn't have to be part of it, but it could be. That's a nice that he tosses it in there, and that's why it's unsolicited. There's some things that we like, and Rob can speak for himself, but the problems we have with the green waste facility have been large. And now that we're repurposing for other uses of that piece, the space isn't gonna be as available as it was before. But doing a spring cleanup, or, the tree cleanup, or doing something and having an option that somebody a partnership or a relationship with somebody that has a number of roll-offs that could facilitate a spring cleanup, that might be appealing differently, but like I said, I don't want to speak.
People
for
may
others.
appreciate that more than having to roll off the freeway.
You're fine.
Okay, so it looks like the consensus is, to go ahead and get some more information and come back to us with that. Yes, please.
Retaining wall.
We don't need to vote on that, because there's no action.
The study item, that's what we're looking for. I think he understands what that just said, and I think I do, and I think Ralph does. So between the three of
Okay,
us, I think we
there you have
just
it.
understood what you said.
Thank you so much for coming. Okay, that being said, we will go to item number 10. Again, this is a study item. This has more in the process if we decide we wanna send it to the planning commission to, no, do we have a,
Public hearing.
do we have a public, that's us. Okay, we would have a public hearing on this. So, Scarlett, you wanna?
So we have not had retaining wall ordinances in our city very long. A few years ago, and people say, well, that's because you're just now building on hills. Janelle's area has been on hills for a long time. But the tastes and the ideas and landscaping and stuff has changed. And so we put some stuff in our setbacks, because that's where we were running into the problems, is that we didn't have anything about retaining walls in the setbacks. So we put something in the zoning code to help minimize the negative impacts in the setbacks. And now we have found that in the construction of the retaining walls, there are good and bad actors out there, and we can't just leave it to chance that the good actors will be the only ones working in the city. So that's the reason why we are proposing that we add, in our, it's kind of weird that it's in the police regulations, but that's where the fence regulations are. And so we put retaining walls. Retaining walls are not a fence, but we did put them in the same section as where our fence regulations are. There is a part of this that the planning commission is holding a public hearing on, and that they're discussing, because we do have an illustration that's going to go, that we're proposing, that you will see after they hold their public hearing, to illustrate the placement of a retaining wall. One of the things that's confusing to people, it depends whose property you're holding up, where that wall can sit in your setback. If you're holding up your neighbor's property, then you can put that wall really close to your property line. It can be in the setback as long as it's not more than 6 feet tall. But if you're holding up your property and your neighbor's gonna look at the exposed side of that wall, then it can't be in that 6 foot area. It can't be in the setback area. It has to be out of the setback unless it's less than 3 feet tall. So there's a lot of little ins and outs, and so we thought maybe an illustration would work, and that's what the planning commission is considering. For you, we're actually considering, we're actually going to start telling people, nope, we're not going to let you just try and live by the letter of the law. You've got to live by both the letter and the intent. And so we are making the letter a little clearer, and because we've got a couple of cases, there's one on each end of the city, both on the east side, but one on the south and one on the north, where they've created walls, and their offset is, if you stand there and look at it, you can't tell that it's a tiered wall. If you get right up next to it, you can see that they've tiered it, like in less than 3 foot lifts. But if you look at it from very far away, there's not enough offset in the tiers to tell that it's a retained wall. And so what we're getting is a lot of material being retained that is not engineered. Coming in under the building code requirements. And we contacted the Cache County Building Department on the most recent complaint, And they just came back and they said, you have got to just tell people they've got to get them engineered. We decided we weren't going to have every wall engineered. We're still gonna let people do things under 3 feet, but we're going to get pretty fussy over 3 feet because of the amount of dirt and the amount of material that people are retaining. So that's what this study item is about. It's to introduce, what we're proposing. I tried to use a lot of graphics in this one, which we haven't historically done much of. We did it in our fence ordinance. But to try and show people on placement and to try and illustrate what we're talking about. I think, cause one of the things that we have found is that people doing the tiering, they do it so that they don't have to have a building permit. But then if they are ending up holding up in a substantial amount of dirt, we still want them to get a building permit to make sure that that's been designed properly and they're putting the compaction and making the lifts right and everything. And so like on page 205, that second, you can see on the second, it's got a gap. It's between lines 30 and 32. That's saying that even though those tiers are under 3 feet and normally wouldn't require a building permit, since those tiers, the combined height of that wall is 10 feet, now we're gonna make you get a building permit, just to make sure that you're building that right and it's going to hold the material that you're trying to. So that's really the basis for it, is we're trying to make it safer. We're also trying to make sure that people understand to follow, to make sure that people can see, the neighbor can see when they pull out of their driveway, that they can see the sidewalk. Pedestrians are as important as cars. And so we want them to be able to follow those clear view rules and things like that. But we really do want the walls built in a very safe manner, because they're holding a lot of dirt in some cases.
Well, and gigantic rocks that are coming down, like the one in my neighborhood is being rebuilt for the 3rd time, and it's a mess. And the neighbors below it are worried.
Cause the rocks are falling down.
Yeah, they're like sinking, the base of it's sinking, and it's just, they're
They're not
rebuilding it.
stabilized
Yeah,
properly.
And the second rebuild was basically throw some dirt on it. So I'm really glad you're working on this. I
agree.
I hope that we can slow down these walls until we've got this ordinance in place, you know, because it's.
Well, I know it's a hassle to get it engineered and all those things, but it's really to their benefit. It really is to the homeowner's benefit. They don't want their foundation to fall out from another house, right? I mean, it's.
Well,
I think we're
it's
getting
the
picky, but
people
it's-
below them.
Well, both of them, it's for the benefit of both,
It's a safety issue
right?
too, not just an aesthetic.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
safe.
And the larger it goes, the more that is, and the more we want to have the ability for engineering requirements. Building brings engineering and a second and trained look on that, rather than a ordinance and a code enforcement that's like, well, yeah, it's a technical fit, but he's not a building official, and we want to make sure that building official or that process of making things safe is there.
Especially as we go further up the hill. Bob is here from the planning commission.
Well, I'm here as a citizen,
Okay,
but are we gonna have a chance to make a comment?
So this would be a study item, and your action tonight would be whether you want to put it to a public hearing. And generally the public would then, I mean, that would be their entire desire. You certainly can have comment now, but you're working towards to see if you want to even push this to a public hearing or not. So.
okay. Are you good with that, Bob? Coming to the public hearing on it?
To make it a public hearing?
It's going to, yeah.
Well, I think it should, and I think it's a study item now, and I think we had some items that would be helpful for you to consider in your study. That would be my intent,
If you
or,
wanna talk, what do you have? to
Come up to the mic.
You need to engage, you probably ought to have him on mic and declare his name.
sorry, my name is Bob Washburn, Providence City. And, just have some comments about the study that you're considering. And, I recognize it as a study that you haven't done anything with yet, that's fine, but I do have some concerns. It feels to me like it really is a land use problem or place that it belongs rather than in fences. Because, the first statement in the thing is that, a retaining wall is not a fence. Or we're gonna put it in with fences.
Well, it's in its own chapter.
Right. Fair enough, but
And to clarify, there is a portion of this going through planning commission at this point.
fair enough, but it's a tiny part, but anyway. If you're interested in comments now, it feels to me like if you're gonna be studying something, it would be helpful to have some comments, but if you wanna wait until there's a public hearing, you certainly have the right to do that. But that's my comment. And, Loretta Buckley's here as well with this, on the same subject.
And I have a lot of data that I've printed up for you and everything for your study.
That would be good.
Yeah, I'm gonna allow it. Go ahead. Give us
Okay.
your feedback.
All right, so the first thing I mentioned was, it feels like a land use issue. I think it's very important that we have these things engineered and not only engineered, but as is stated in, on line 158, the inspections and final report. The inspections and final report have a person who's responsible. Design engineer would be the person responsible to inspect and certify and provide a report at the end that it was built the way it was designed. And that would provide prospective owners, buyers, whoever, certification or some kind of a guarantee that it was built according to some standard. And we can look at that standard and see what it was. Which I think is very important. I think there are some things that just really, it talks about landscaping on the terrace, which I think is great to make it look nice, but I think that we need to allow something other than landscaping, like maybe a tennis court, basketball court, sports, something, garden, hot tub, something, if they wanted to do something like that, rather than only landscaping or xeriscaping. I think it talks about mechanically stabilized earth walls, which I had no idea what that was. I had to look it up. Those are some serious ways of creating a retaining wall, which really is, I mean, it's good. It's safe. And I thought stabilized earth walls sound like it could be
Like
dirt.
rolled away, it's dirt, right? So anyway, I guess my other issue with this, if it stays in fences, even if it comes to the planning commission, is that we have a lot of technical stuff going into the code. It seems like the code ought to say, you can have a retaining wall, but it needs to be engineered. And then the engineer is gonna go to a specifications code, some kind of standards that have to be followed, and that doesn't have to be in the city code. It seems like we've got way too much stuff in the code itself that is confusing, and then we gotta change the code if standards change, and it just seems like we could do it differently and do a better job. And that's really basically, I probably have more comments, but That's good for now.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't want to be here till 11, so quickly.
Hi,
Just
Loretta Buckley, Providence. I will be quick. And I had to bring this because I've made copies of stuff. Okay. Good evening. I know it's late. Mayor, Alder, council members, this is the first time I've come before the city council. I think we can all agree that Providence is a beautiful city and we want beautiful homes and yards. We can also agree that many of the new developments that are being planned are being put on the foothills that come with retaining wall issues. I agree with Scarlett and her concerns that have been represented. These lots, though, they come with a price premium and building challenges, so we can build a home that we can enjoy. Okay, I'm going to really some of this out and I'll save that for public comment. While I agree that the code governing retaining walls should address the beauty of our cities, I believe that the amendment presented today is short-sighted, and I realize that's a public comment thing. I didn't realize how this worked, and I apologize.
No problem.
We shouldn't be, so I think one of the things I'd like to address is in the graphics and all that they're considering, they talk about being able to be seen from the right of way or any adjacent properties. I would go further with that and say residential properties. I don't think we should be doing code now, or what ifs when an agricultural piece of land is sold in the future and we don't know when that would be, then to become residential and be built. Right now it's agricultural, they're horses, cows, or hay fields. I believe that we should allow these changes to address those of us that own a lot want to build on them. I have my data for you. Aid in your study.
Are you an engineer?
My father's an engineer, my son is an engineer, and I'll explain all of this.
Thank you.
Quickly, okay. So the very first page is a topo survey, and we bought a lot up on the Sagecrest development, Sherwood Drive. You can't see on that, I have a little magnifying glass, but the pins on our property, there is a 32-foot elevation drop. That is the height of a 3-story building. Those condos in our townhomes, think that. Okay, so I know we've got problems, but when I see what we already have submitted, they're giving us a total height of retaining walls of only 10 feet. Okay, when I am on a grade with that kind of 32 feet, that really does not give me any kind of usable yard that I can have at all, unless we do what a lot of homeowners now are doing. They're just piling it up on the back and they have a great big pile that's not compacted and it's eroding and it's washing away and it's just all weeds. I don't think that is the intent that Providence City wanted. The second, so we didn't know all of this. And when we bought our lot, now I have commissioned a geotech study. I commissioned this topo survey to give that to me. You will see in there, there's one little small section. It has a grade of 57.1% on it per this topo survey. Now, I had no idea, but I can tell you that section, I could not walk up it or down it unless I sat on my butt and slid down or crawled on my hands and knees because that is so steep. So and then the second page was just the construction documents of that. To give you an idea of some of the other developments that are coming in on the hillside, I have provided 3 pages of graphics from Shoreline Estates phases 2 and 3, and then the Little Baldy Place subdivision now that goes over the top of us and connects into Spring Creek Parkway. So we know all of those west facing lots have very steep lots. You can see in there, I provided a graphic that I pulled off of the city website, and I know that this is probably redundant to you. It's color coded and it shows you all of the extreme slopes that we have to deal with. The ones in red are very extreme. The other ones are kind of middle extreme, but they're extreme. I have a copy of the International Building Code. I know Rob is very familiar with the IBC. Appendix J talks about grading, and in there they state that anything over 30% is considered not is steeper than its intended use, which would be a use of a yard of any kind. And I'm not talking about having a big yard. We've expended tens of thousands of dollars. We want to terrace our retaining walls. We, will engineer what needs to be engineered. I agree with this, with the city's recommendations on there about no wall being greater than 8 feet in height. I think we can all agree 8 feet's really tall. I'm 5'6". That's a pretty darn big wall, and that has to be engineered. We know that. But I just think that that's kind of big and not very good looking. And finally, if you'll look on the last page that I gave you, I've actually provided some code recommendations, or just something that I thought maybe as you're going in and doing this study that I would recommend, and I highlighted those in red. I just wanted to include that verbiage of residential versus agricultural, all property facing. And I will tell you, the bottom of my property faces a big field with horses in it. I understand the setbacks. We've done all that work. The other thing that I am requesting that you consider in your study is item number 9, where I state the properties with grades higher than 30% in steepness with the combined height of all walls, which is language that they're presenting, shall be increased in increments to allow for the extreme slopes. So this wouldn't be just mine, but there's many properties, as you can see. Right, so if they had grades from 30 to 35%, possibly we could say the total height of retaining walls shall not exceed 14 feet instead of the 12 feet that is currently there for everything. And then if the grades are steeper, maybe we get 16 feet of total height. That's not 16 feet in one wall, or like Scarlett referenced, that you can't see that setback, because if they're done correctly, if you go 4 feet up high, you have to go 8 feet back in the setback, right?
That's what
Double.
we're proposing.
Right. I agree with that. I think, then that gives us an opportunity to put in other things, maybe fruit trees, other things that can be used and are beautiful and provide shade. But for these extreme grades, then that gives the homeowner, these are big investments. And I will tell you, Scarlett mentioned bad actors. I have a retaining rock wall guy. Wonderful. He has shown me how he baffles them all, which means he kind of leans them in just one elevation, how he puts the fabric and then the aggregate behind it and the drainage tube underneath it. I've also had a bad actor who told me, well, if you don't like that price, I'll reduce it by $2,000 and remove the fabric. That's not the point of a wall. We want the wall to stay in place and to hold the dirt in place. Okay, so I get that. I signed with the other guy who's nearly double the price, but I knew it would be done right. Anyway, so I know there's a lot of information here in the recommendations. I just wanted to present that. I will certainly present it at public comment and do more, but I think that as you consider all of this, if you can give us those parameters because of these steep grades, or even allow me, my property is 8 feet off at the bottom. Allow me at least just to level that in less than 3 foot, because it's within the setback. I know that it has to be under 3 feet. If I do retaining walls under 3 feet, because I'm in that setback, then I can at least level it and get just a level starting point to start counting my retaining wall width. Right now, 12 feet. I just have to put 8 feet to level my property to put on a lawn. And I still have an overall grade of 38%. I have a house that I have to build at a certain site to comply with the CCRs. I understand all of that. I'm doing all of the engineering. My son works for an engineering firm, so we've hired him. Anyway, I know I'm long-winded. I'm sorry. I had time to take 3 minutes until I knew how this went, but thank you.
Can I get a copy of that for the recorder?
Yeah,
If you don't have an extra one, we'll.
I did 6 because I was counting members of
Just
make
make
all of
we'll
this.
just make a copy.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment, keep in mind, not in this ordinance, but greater than 30% slope isn't allowed to be adjusted. So if she has a 38% slope, you can't adjust that with a retaining wall anyway, because that would violate other rules that you've already, that the council's already established.
Our sensitive areas, if you wanna look at that a little bit, in Title 10, Chapter 5, it talks about our sensitive areas. And steep slopes is one of those, so.
Okay. Well, again, this is a study item, so we'll look at all the.
Can I say,
Go ahead.
it seems to me, like, I agree with Bob in that it should be looked at by land use as well. I think, I mean, I wanna fast track it because I don't want any more walls to go up until we've got something, but I also wanna get it right. And I think having more eyes on it might be helpful. But I mean, I think that's something we would decide to do now instead of us moving forward with it before they do.
Planning Commission has looked at this.
They've looked at a retaining wall ordinance. Have they looked at this?
We haven't-
Yes, they
We
did.
haven't reviewed and done anything with this portion of it.
Yes, you did. Because you needed the background information for it.
I think it was presented there, but it was part of that only the section of.
So it was an informational piece as
It was
opposed to a
informational piece.
discussion
Right.
piece.
And the discussion piece is the piece inside the land use code. So there is a usage of, in the land use section of how it's used, where on the boundary line. But this is more the ordinance of a definition, wall, construction ability. Either way it goes, to put it back to the planning commission, gets them to look at it more eyes. Ultimately, either direction, you or the governing body will adopt either of those codes. So if you want more eyes on it, that's optional. But generally, we only send items that are within the zoning code to them. And so it's subdivisions, the development of the property as far as subdividing, those kind of items are what we traditionally take there. So it's in our normal process, it's appropriate for it to come to you and to go to the public hearing from your end. You can certainly do more due diligence, you know, on however you'd like to do that. That's a choice you have.
Even if you decide that you want to keep it in the administrative side of the code, you can still ask the planning commission to look at it and give comment on it. That, either way you decide to go, you can get their input.
Sorry, just clarification. Did you say if the slope is 30% or more? What did you say about
It's supposed to be
that?
undisturbed.
You're not supposed to do retaining walls.
You're not
if it's
supposed to disturb it.
Disturb it, not move it, do anything with
a
it.
greater slope than what was it?
Because the risk is once you start to disturb a 30% or greater slope, that slope has been compacted over time and is a natural, compacted item. You start to deteriorate that and the risk, that it proceeds. Now, I don't know if that slope that she has was created by natural means or by a artificial contractor pushing dirt over the side, as she mentioned. I don't know that. I just want you to be mindful that there are other regulations that domino into.
So is that an ordinance that we have to open up also?
If
we're
you're going to
address
change
this whole
that,
thing?
if you're gonna change that, that would be a whole nother ordinance, another.
Right, I'm just curious,
There-
wondering.
There is a little caveat to that. You could have a 30% slope, and if from top to bottom of the slope was only 12 feet, that doesn't count as a sensitive area slope. It has to be from top to bottom, needs to be a distance of 50 feet. So from the brow of the slope to the toe of the slope to the base of the slope would be 50 feet. And so, they may or may not. One of the other comments that I think you need to think about, because we have gotten complaints. People are getting frustrated when they buy lots and they look at the lay of the land, they come in, they build their house, and then somebody comes in and hauls in 4 or 5 feet of fill and raises the elevation of their lot where they would have had similar yards, now someone's got this higher lot. And that is something to consider. If I don't know that the intent has ever been to reshape the mountain. So I think when you start talking about raising the elevation, you need to think about what the impact that does on, we have one that was actually, the lot was semi-level with the undeveloped property. The builder decided they wanted to cut out and lower the lot, so they did the opposite thing of what most people do. Now, this person is dealing with an undeveloped piece of property that's like 5 feet higher than his lot, and he's frustrated over that. He bought the house knowing that it was somebody else that decided to do that cutaway. But that change in elevation really is a big deal when people start living next to it. So I think there's a lot of things as you drive around looking at lots and retaining walls and things. I think that's something to keep in mind because we are getting complaints fairly consistently about those changes of elevation.
One other item I would just, have you consider is that whether it's undeveloped, whether it's zoned as residential, agricultural, or anything else, somebody owns that property, and when they do develop, if you have unrestricted before their development, and then they come in to develop, they could be the same owner, and you've allowed something to happen on to encroach maybe into their property or have a risk that they now have just because they didn't develop first. You have a right to any undeveloped or developed property to protect the rights of either side, regardless of whether it's currently developed, planned in the next immediate future to develop, or a long-term plan to develop. Any of those are developable properties.
I think we have to treat everything as though it's gonna be developed. Okay. Do you wanna work on this? Do you wanna send it back to planning commission to work on it before we go to public hearing? How do you think?
Let me just ask one question. The details that you have spelled out in here, do we have a city engineer that's reviewed this?
Yes.
So you concur with this, what you've done here,
Max went over it, yes.
and he's
And-
okay with
yeah.
that? Okay. The other thing, and I don't know if this is still the case, but I've had engineers tell me you cannot engineer a rock wall because it's point-to-point contact. And so therefore, to have and maybe they have mitigated that by putting fabric and drainage behind it, but that can silt. And so, I don't know, but I think definitely the answer is engineering on retaining walls, absolutely. And keeping the proper setbacks. So I think that is very important. Engineering is very important. I don't know how they engineer a rock wall.
They actually do have some engineering standards now.
Do they?
Yes, cause that's what I had always been told too, but over the past few years, as I've researched things for us, they do have diagrams and engineering standards and but a lot of it really depends on the materials. That's why it's so important that we wanted to put enough technical in there to make sure that people knew that by code, we were serious, that they needed to have things engineered. But we left it open enough that they can look at how their material, what they're holding up, how it needs to be stabilized, and design the wall appropriately. Because as you know, there's places that are just silt, places that are clay, places that are rocky, and they can be within 300 feet of each other. And so what the neighbor can do may not be the best thing for another person in the same area. So we want we want that, the design team to have the flexibility to engineer whatever they're gonna build properly.
The other important thing is the engineering stamp.
Yes,
Absolutely, every wall needs to be stamped. And there needs to be financial backing behind that engineer, so he doesn't say, oh, well, I'm moving to Arizona, here's your, yeah. Cause that's been a problem in the past. They get confronted with a problem where there's been a failure, they're gone. They move. I don't know how you get around all that stuff, but there's some issues with, but an engineering stamp is a good place to start.
yes.
Okay, I still don't heard an answer.
I appreciate the drawings, I would like to say. I thought that added a lot of clarity,
Thanks for this.
given historical retaining wall issues that we've addressed. I think the drawings are helpful.
Okay.
Does the planning commission want to review it again? Is that?
Do we want them to review it?
I'm okay with extra eyes. I mean, I think
That's where I stand. I would like them to work on it.
Let's send it back to planning commission and have them look at it as well.
You want to send it to them to hold a public hearing? Or you want it to send to them to, draft and work on language?
Work on language, send it back to us.
Just want to make sure.
Right. Okay. All right, that does it for our agenda. We'll now go to staff reports. So, Ty? Are you awake?
Yes, I'm awake, barely. I've got nothing to report.
Okay. Other than the baby's fine.
Yep, baby's doing good. My wife did just have surgery yesterday, which is why I'm home, but she's doing good, so all good. Thank you.
Our best wishes
And
go
the
to her.
county elections.
Aren't we glad we have such?
We
a
are so
great
glad we have
reporter
Ty.
And such a reporter and experience and that we are not the county.
What a
Aren't we
mess.
so glad?
We don't have
They
to.
took a mess to a whole new messy level.
But we have wonderful expertise in Ty and a backup with Scarlett. If we do our elections, we are well, positioned to do it on ourselves without the county if they're going to be.
Without the county to mess it up. Thanks for your good work, Ty.
Thank you.
Okay, Public Works?
I'll start with saying thanks for the kudos with the staff and their plowing efforts. Today's storm was difficult for everybody in this valley, there's no doubt. I heard, we were talking about our just over 40 miles, 40.25 miles or whatever road that we currently plow. When you get storms like this, when it really gets the crews struggling when it
It
comes.
challenges our,
The school did say they should have had a late start.
Yeah, well,
they were,
That would have helped.
it did
they were
start-
apologizing over KSL.
Yeah.
Once it started snowing about 4 AM, it didn't really stop for us today till what, 1, 2 o'clock? And so our primary routes, they got a lot of miles. And those 40 miles were a lot more than 40 miles on those primary routes. And then you get people that, like you probably, that live in a cul-de-sac. We got a lot of complaints today.
I did not complain.
You did not. But those dead end roads and those cul-de-sacs, they got postponed. And it frustrates people.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate, the patience factor. We do still have, a couple learning curves with a couple drivers. And so we'll get through those, but today's storm was a rough one overall. And we did lose a few trees and such. And so spring cleanup things are something to think about, even though I'm not a fan of the idea, in the broad scheme of doing massive green waste removal again, because Logan City is so close in my opinion. However, I'll derail from kind of venting there and go to, we have 3 large developments underway. So Shoreline and Homes on the Knoll and Blackstone, they are full bore this winter, so it hasn't really slowed down in the development world, because we've got a lot of
Big stuff.
area getting developed for more houses, so it's keeping us busy in the winter in the development realms as well. And there's 3 or 4 small 2 to 3 lot subdivisions kind of slowly in motion as well, but those 3 large ones are underway and going strong, so keeps the public works going.
Tell you guys, thank you.
Okay, yep, I'm welcome for questions, but that's all I have.
I have one question. When they widened the road past my place and past Keith Watkins and up through there, they put that rolled curb in and the sidewalk right against them.
Yeah, that stretch of road has just got so many problems. It's too narrow.
Well, but the commitment was at that time, you know, you'd have to go back in the city council minutes, and I think Scarlett remembers that all the snow would be rolled to the north side. Now, normally, what little snow we have, it's not a big issue. Today it was a problem.
I drove by 3 or 4 times today and was feeling for that sidewalk situation.
Yeah, it's you know, we have an ordinance to keep your sidewalk clean, keep the storm drains open, and it was pretty tough today. We might get a lot of melding. I don't know if they can help us out with that, but it was all supposed to be rolled to the north, but there's been a drain put in on the north now because of the flooding. Since that initial time, I don't know what the solution to the problem really is, but like I say,
Different storms are different animals when it snows like it did today and everybody's just in fast track to keep those primary roads for public safety purposes. Dealing with, which way to roll snow versus, cause when you do that with that stretch of road, you've really gotta have some extra time on your hands, cause you gotta hit that same stretch of road 2 to 3 times to get it all the way to the north side with one truck. And so unless you've got, help, so to speak, so that you can roll it because it's an open road. And you can't put that big of a windrow of snow right down the center of a road and then you've got head-on traffic scenarios. And so it's not a real easy scenario to accomplish unless you've got the time and backup to push it all over. And when it doesn't stop snowing like it did today, it makes that very difficult because you have to do it 2 or 3 times throughout the day to get it properly all moved over there. So each storm's kind of its own animal in that stretch of road.
I didn't know if your truck with the wing on the side of it could make it in 2 passes or not. That would work.
He's normalizing hitting curbs.
We're working on a training exercise there. I think the answer is to widen the road and to add a park strip.
My house is south. And you can do it on both sides. You can do it on the west and you can do it on the north and you can buy the whole thing. I'll move.
You make a roundabout there.
Whatever you would like to do. Once you buy the home,
You can do
even
whatever.
part of the driveway is part of the roundabout. You can just go ahead and go for it. It's for sale if you want
The
it.
problem was rolling it all to one side as you do narrow the road.
Well, I don't know as you narrow it any narrower than it already is. Oh my goodness, it's not a good situation.
Well, it sounds like they're aware of it, so.
We are, and the other worst area in town is obviously Edgewood Drive. So anytime you got curb and gutter or
It's
no
terrible.
curb and gutter and like 3rd East going out towards River Heights on our 3rd East or Edgewood Drive, those sidewalks right against the edge of the road are a huge problem.
They are.
So anytime you can avoid a situation where you're trying to build a road profile that puts that sidewalk any closer than 6 feet, you should avoid it.
But I do appreciate all that you do, and
Yeah,
so do the
thank
bus drivers, so thank you very
You
much.
bet, thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay. Community services?
So you may get some irritated people on our winter parking because the deputies, they were willing to come and cite and.
Did they ticket today?
Yes, they did. I sent them a text and, they had already been in the city ticketing. I just asked them if they would come and talk to people and and they'd already been in the city ticketing. And we sent a note out on the pipeline, letting people know that our hours are until 9 AM, which we've got a couple of different groups that are constantly violating that. But when there's snow and active snow removal going on, then it's while the plows are out, there is no street side parking. And that frustrated a few people because we did have to give tickets today in a few areas so that plows could make sure that they could do their job well. So you may get some frustration on that because we expanded.
Any snow on the road tickets?
No, we didn't give those out yet.
We have had some confrontation to help educate. We're working on the education piece of that.
Yeah. Yes, we are working with private entities and, with residents that are not plowing properly and with, entities that are contract entities for some of our parking lots and stuff throughout the city that are not plowing properly. They don't have room for snow storage, so they're using our streets or the neighbor's property across the street. So we're trying really hard. Colton's trying very hard to stay on top of that. We did get some complaints today, if you hear about those, the cans that were knocked down on 200 West. 200 West is a county road. Providence City's snowplows did not plow 200 West.
That's correct. So
any can damage on 200 West was not Providence City's, doing. As far as, I know we had this huge snowstorm, but recreation's right around the corner and we've got people, our registrations have been quite busy, so it looks like it's gonna be a really good year for recreation. With the new subdivision ordinance, the planning commission doesn't see final plats anymore, but staff is working on reviewing the final plat for Copper Heights. That's the one that's on the southwest area of the city out there, Garden Drive. And they're probably quite close to for our reviews to be done. And so we are still saying, we're not swamped with land use, but we're still staying busy as well. And then there are still some more code changes to come down the line. Whenever we change codes, it seems like it has a ripple effect. And so there will be other code changes that both you and the planning commission will be seeing. So,
well, thank you to you and your team for I know it's a lot of work to change these codes and to make sure that they meet all of the state guidelines as well as the other city codes. So thank you.
And I do want to say how much I appreciate the council staying on top of the activity in the state legislature. Because it's
a daunting task.
It's a difficult deal. I mean, I understand sort of some of that thought process. I can understand why builders want things consistent. Unfortunately, properties are not built consistent, cities aren't consistent. So this whole push for all this consistency is really quite difficult. So I really do appreciate the amount of time that our city council has put into staying on top of those codes. And the financing ones are just as important as the land use ones, so they're all important. So thank you very much.
Welcome. Okay, Ryan.
Few things to report. I totally ditto, Scarlett's. It means a great deal for any bills and anything you're watching out there because we just don't have enough bandwidth as a staff, as the mayor and I, the bandwidth to watch all of those bills. There's over 1,000, I think, this year.
800 and something.
Yeah,
I don't know how many
They grow
are
every
actually on the
time.
committee, but,
800 that had bill numbers,
and they're
right?
still putting new bills in.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, they'll probably hit 1,000, and watching those, some haven't got bill numbers, and it is just daunting to watch all of that. And so anything you can do to help as that goes in 45 days, to pass that many laws is,
They can't possibly understand all of them.
That's ridiculous.
there you go, can you imagine? Can you imagine, you reviewed 3 laws tonight, can you imagine to do 800, 900,
Can't even imagine.
in 45 days,
Yeah.
from start to finish?
Falcon is doing it well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the problem.
And that's why we need to watch some of those, and so, anyway, couple of things, this is a fun time of year. Grant season is a fun time of year for me. And, so I've got a lot of good fun things
You
going
do
on.
spreadsheets.
And spreadsheets, and I appreciate anybody's help that's there. The mayor has been great in getting support letters. I love when I get emails that are relevant, and success stories when I get those, to be able to break success stories in a council meeting. We applied for the Safe Routes to School program. And, at 6:30 tonight, I got an email, confirming that we got 2 of our 3 phases that we applied for, nearly $500,000. And the 2 phases, that we did 3 phases in this project. We did 200 east, from 200 north to 200 south of the sidewalk. And we worked with the school, and asked, and this is one of the successes with working with our schools. We love our elementary school, we love our middle school that's here, and working with them in their needs and being joint efforts. That was one of the things that they identified as the community council was one of the best items that they'd like to have us address. And, UDOT has awarded us that phase. The second phase was the Edge Hill Trail. The Edge Hill Trail, they have said, no, they weren't gonna fund, according to the Safe Routes to School, so they're not prepared to do that one, so they turned that one down. But we, at the last, as we were throwing this, grant together and we were working on things, we tossed in a hope and a prayer, and we thought, we're gonna give it a try. And that is the crossing light at Spring Creek Middle School, which they funded. So
Down here on the roundabout?
That's good.
Just up from the roundabout where we cross, where the crossing guard is at, that would be a pedestrian activated light like we have down here on Gateway Drive. We'll add another one here in town, and UDOT has agreed to fund that. So I think that's exciting. For me, that's exciting, and for anybody that helped to go there, I think that was an exciting one. The Edge Hill Trail, just as a note, so we have applied for the RAPS. We've applied for 2 RAPS grants. One, the Brager playground, Brager Park playground, and the Edge Hill Trail. And so we applied in RAPS for those 2. We haven't heard. We won't hear, the deadline is March 1st. So I wanted to get those in before today.
When that goes to the county council, we'll wanna be there.
Yeah, we want to support those ones and see if we can get that. We also have I've prepared, and the mayor is helping me get some support letters for this one. But the Utah Outdoor Recreation Grant, we'll submit the Edge Hill Trail to that one. So we've been declined today for one, but we'll hit 2 more. And that's just kind of the way we work. So anyway, and then we're looking for a grant, for about $600,000-700,000, for the land and water conservation grant that would be the potential of buying property on the East Bench, for a park and a trailhead, so. So that would be, another potential, add to our park system. And, so we're working on that with the county trails, is helping me, to assist in writing that one up. So, anyway, we've probably in the last month and by the end of March, we'll have applied for well over $1.5 million, maybe $2 million with the grants in this sort of grant season. So it's kind of fun to do those. And have already gotten 500,000 is a great success for us so far. We are starting design on the safe routes to school on First East from Providence Elementary to Third South. That's kind of our hope to get there. That's under design. The skate park is under design, and they've come out and tested the groundwater levels, and they're still working on different things to get a final design with some of the restrictions that the property has. And so we're working to try to help finalize the design and get through the permitting process so we can get that started this spring. So anyway, another one, just I like to give you numbers because I'm a numbers person, and we have 1,144 users on our fiber optic system as of midday today. So, and we have installs in those scheduled for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So, and we continue to have those. We did have some stern letters that maybe extended a bit farther than anticipated, be sent out to some of our residents, indicating a mandatory fee that is coming. And I would say there is a time that you'll need to make a decision of what an install will cost and whether we do an average or a direct cost. Or if we take that cost and we say, you know, the install is part of what we do, and that is our investment, and then that investment is recouped as use, just as we have for the rest of the network. So there will be some discussion about that. I think the intent is just to try to help us to get as many installs and as much of the construction completed before our April deadline with Strata. You know, we're interested in lots of different things. Just because that construction deadline ends, we still have 2 years of them operating under that contract. So just because one contract ends, doesn't mean they're going away, doesn't mean if you miss it, you're out. But what it does mean is we've got a lump sum contract for all installs. So the more we can get installed under that agreement and the prices we were able to negotiate 3 years ago, rather than today's prices, there will be a savings to the city and to those that install before that April deadline. There's clearly savings because we have a locked in price of a 3 year ago price. So to be able to have that price, we don't have any inflation costs that will come. So there is savings for any of those that will get their drops or installs completed before that deadline. So, but to have a mandatory, to have some of the wording was stronger than should have been used, and we have discussed that with those ISPs to help them to understand. And we're working with them, and because we have a good working relationship, we can do that. And in a good relationship, we're going well. That is my report, unless you have questions.
Good work.
Thank you.
Anything on the possible sewer funding plan? Any ideas?
You know, that $40 million grant?
You know, I was reading, I gotta admit, I was reading an article. I was reading an article and there was a city that was talking about putting theirs in, and they talked about that they had done this project and this project, and they had a $28 million sewer treatment project, and I thought, that's affordable. I gotta find that city and figure out where that design is, cause that's the design I like, cause that's the price I like.
And the question came up, I don't remember who asked the question, maybe it was Mary before she left. But keep in mind, our treatment cost of our sewer rate is over 70% of our rate. 70% of our costs are paid to Logan for treatment. So when you go to pay that, just keep in mind, 70%, over 70%, of our costs go to Logan to treat.
That's $30 almost.
Yeah, over $30. It is. So anyway, just to keep that in mind, that's the level that we're paying for treatment at this point. It's a lot. And, but they have a really expensive plant. They're expanding the plant. They just got another grant to expand it even farther. So good on them.
Where are they getting their grants? We need to tap into their street.
He's gonna find the city, he's gonna call him and ask.
We're working on our end. But yeah, no, I give them, hey, if they're gonna go out, I think that's
I
great
need to
for
see
them.
what you are pushing.
So, anyway.
I'm pushing, I get it done.
Just as one last item, for my mental health and wellness. My wife and I are celebrating our 25 years together, and we are leaving tonight to the airport sometime between now and 3 or 4 a.m. And we're flying to Panama for vacation. So if I'm out of town for the next week or so, understand that that's where I'm at and that's what I'm celebrating. So
Good for you. Congratulations and good for you.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn. We have to second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion